Welcome everyone to the GSL. Let's get rid of that. GSL round of 16 Group C. Group C consisting of Dark, Stats, GuMiHo, and Ryung. So got a lot of thoughts on this group. But first and foremost, we have a ZVP. In the top left, it is Dark. Bottom right, it is Stats. Yes, that Stats. The Stats that left us under 2 years ago to go to the military. He is now back. Military in Korea, I think is like 18 months now. It has changed over the decades. It used to be even upwards to 3 years back in his, I think the 80s. So, and then it recently, I think in the 2010s got reduced from 22 months or something like that to 18 months, something along those lines. But always fascinating to learn about countries that actually have that, installed. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but obviously it throws off the career paths of many people who, well, anyone actually. I think there's also a bit of a interesting topic about like more regular careers. And you know what? Nope, we're talking about StarCraft, not Korean culture. The point is, Stats is back, and Stats is recently back. So the fact that he made it into GSL is pretty awesome. But GSL, as I'd said in previous casts, is not what it used to be. So I still think it's really cool because other top tier players did not make it through. So there is still a cutoff. But even though it's round of 16, it's not many players. It's just you kind of know if you're round of 16 worthy, and a fresh player coming back from the military, you wouldn't say is the absolute guaranteed to be here. But Stats is here, and Innovation, I believe, is in Group D. So even though he said he wasn't going to go back to StarCraft 2, of course, he lied. And Stats even called him out on it, I believe. Stats actually laughed when he was told Innovation said he wouldn't come back and said, we'll see about tomorrow or something like those, along those lines. But Stats has always been interested in coming back. So I think he has a lot of love for the game, where even though a lot of these players, I mean, most of these players play an extraordinary amount of StarCraft 2, you can kind of tell when, where their passion is. I think a famous example of this is Tasia, if you guys remember that guy. If you don't, quick TLDR, dominant player back in, 2014, 15? I don't know. And he actually straight up would admit that he just plays because he can make money off of it. Like he was very blunt, but he was very good, so it didn't really matter. And Innovation was kind of more like a Tasia always to me, even though I love Innovation. But Stats, he always seemed so nice, and he was always having so much fun, and he never really, complained a whole lot. Even as a Protoss player who, we kind of all agree they haven't had the most success, or the most best success, I guess is the best way to put it, which is that they don't win tournaments all that often. They get pretty high up in tournaments, but they don't win it. And of course, one of the guys who actually was winning them, and maybe as such was less likely to complain, was Stats. So Stats coming back, looking to be a champion once again. No doubt has a handle on how things work nowadays. Only 18 months later, that's not that much of a change in StarCraft 2, but on top of that, they have had the opportunity to play StarCraft even while they were in the military. It's not like they're completely disbarred for literally 18 months. Don't touch a freaking computer in your life. They do have breaks. They do go back home. Some of these guys even streamed when they went back home. And then I think they do have some time if they're in an office job, for instance, to kind of sneak in some hours here and there. So Stats should definitely be up on things. And we do have a very typical ZVP, but I talked a lot about players who are coming back and their position in StarCraft 2. I haven't really talked about this guy, Dark, who of course is going to the military soon. He's in that Zest weird position of any day now. Maybe now, maybe no, maybe later, maybe not, maybe yes. But Dark should be going to the military very, very soon. So he has been full-time StarCraft 2 pro gaming since it was released. And, in the last 5-6 years or whatever, has placed himself firmly in the top Zergs of the world, top 5, and occasionally, I suppose, like top 3, basically? Yeah, perhaps never titled top 1. Even when he won that BlizzCon, which I tend to forget, I have to remind myself that he won BlizzCon. It's like, was it the best BlizzCon? Okay, whatever. But he should be winning this. Dark should be straight up favored against Stats, because even though Stats has been practicing, has made it here, Stats is not the Stats of 2.5 years ago. Dark is Dark from yesterday, from last week, from last month, from Katowice. And because he is still Dark, he is, of course, going to cheese, of course. The Adepts and Oracles, however, give him a big problem. Adepts and Oracles, pretty good against Lings. And decent against Queens, in a weird way. Adepts don't kill Queens very quickly, but Queens don't kill Adepts very quickly. And if Stats picks up on the fact that this isn't all in, which, I don't know, at this point he might have. I might still be kind of confused by the amount of drones. No, he is building shield batteries. Okay, yeah, so he did pick up on the lack of drones. And so I was going to say he could even continue building oracles and probably use them rather effectively. But he's not going to do that. He's going to focus entirely on trying to get that ground army up, which is the safer call, alongside static defense, which is the absolute best call. I wouldn't have minded if he even just fully walled off, to be honest. That shield battery is not quite done. The Adept already under threat. Oh, the timing. That was close. And Lings will get a wraparound on the Adepts, but close to a shield battery with Oracles covering and Queens not in position. This is a total disaster for Dark so far, but Nidus Room in the main base, unnoticed by Stats. 2 Queens pop out, but that's not a whole lot. This one is actually off creep, so it can't transfuse. Nidus Room is the one that is actually being target fired. There, finally, the transfuse happens. Woo, that Nidus Worm, very close to staying alive, but a second one was on the way, third one immediately as well. Stats forced to reposition. He had everything locked up nice and tight in the natural and the third base, but he didn't check his main often enough. But the army has been growing steadily. He hasn't lost any as of yet. He's been warping in, and it's a decent amount of units. Adepts covering those Stalkers. I'm actually a little surprised Stalkers were made, but I guess he was thinking about killing those Queens. More Adepts might be necessary, but the gateways are still powered up. We got more side defense trying to be built. Clever warp-in positioning as well. And those Queens are now looking awfully lonely. And while they do have transfuse, while they're on creep, it's going to run out eventually. And there you go. They don't kill things particularly quickly. There's 7 Queens. So I guess if they focus fire, they're doing all right. I guess. But Stats, where are the rest of the warp-ins? Shield battery overcharge and the natural will help, but Stats is actually going to tap out. Cannot get that number of units to actually stem the blood flow, which is too bad because he actually was so well defended in his natural and third base. That main, it was as simple as recognizing the Nidus Worm, bringing the Oracles back. The Oracles kill building Nidus Worm very quickly. That's disappointing. Dark getting away with a cheeky, cheesy win. Let's go to game 2. Game number 2, lickety splits. In the bottom right, up 1 after a Nidus Worm cheese. He is Dark. In the top left, it is Stats. Stats really had an opportunity to stomp that opener from Dark, smack him out of the way for trying to be so aggressive early on, and didn't check the main base. Happens to everyone, I guess, including world champion Stats. Very, very unfortunate. He had everything else locked up, and I even thought he had enough time to warp in enough units to defend no matter what happened, but apparently not. So that's kind of sad. But Stats was so close to holding it. I do feel, weirdly enough, more encouraged by it. Stats got, but Dark gets a lot of people. But the rest of what Stats was doing was very on point. The build, the macro, the reads, it was very on point. So if Dark was hoping that he could just knock this old man out of the way with a cheese and then another cheese, Dark's proxy hatching, I don't know. That doesn't seem inevitable. Stats really could have been playing a lot worse in that first game, and I would have said, oh, well, you know, he's coming back, so we have to give him a little bit of leeway. But it was just the Nidus from the main base. All right, so proxy hatch time. Dark being very cheesy, and it might be because he thinks Stats is going to be less good against cheeses as he comes back. I mean, you can certainly have your own take on what you think people would be weak against if they haven't played StarCraft 2 in a long time. Maybe Dark is like, he's gonna mess up breeding these builds or something, but especially because these are never very common anyways. I mean, even if Dark was facing top tier Stats, with the same strats. Damn it. So close to rhyming. Back in 2017, I mean, this would still be really weird. So, I mean, but Dark would do it, is what I'm trying to say. Like, Dark would do weird stuff, and he's continuing to do weird stuff. So, trying to think that this is going to work particularly well against Stats, because Stats is coming back, I guess might still make sense, but could also be that Dark really just believes he's better than his opponent and is going to try and get this 2-0 out of the way really quick and then face either GuMiHo or Ryung, who I also think Dark is very favored against. Dark actually should have a really easy time in this group, even though I love all the rest of the players. So far, solid defense from Stats. Recognized something was wrong with scouting. Didn't take long to find the hatchery. Chronoed out a Zealot, a Stalker, second Stalker on the way. Roach Warren is about to finish, and a couple of larvae are available. There we go. Roach is now on the way. But shield battery, 2 gateway wall, second shield battery up. This seems like a very solid start. Very solid. Stats was certainly well known for his defense. The Shield of Ire. That's what they used to call him. Pretty cool nickname, honestly. And I actually don't know how this is supposed to work now for Dark.
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you for appeasing the overlord.
Actually not sure. This is not a lot of stuff. You know, spine crawlers, a spine crawler version of the proxy hatch, you know that inevitably these walls will be broken. But with the roach version, it does feel like it's got a snowball from the start. And so far, not even able to get a grab on the stalkers. They're always running back to the shield batteries in the nick of time. Even this adept lasting much longer than she should. Lots of the lings already dead. Only a few ravagers left over. The hatchery's also snipeable, but I wouldn't suggest it until you know that you've got this handled, because the broodlings will spawn from it. But I think Stats does have this handled. And he is just building shield battery after shield battery. Yeah, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Stats, well, he just knew what to do, and he scouted really quickly. And there was no secondary what if. Because this was as solid as his initial start to the last game, but there was no gotcha, Nidus room in the main base. This was actually it. It was very one-dimensional. So that is not going to work out, and this is looking to be the fastest best of 3 ever played. We're at 7 minutes, I think, and that's with a little bit of analysis afterwards. Let's go into game 3. So now tied up 1-1. Let's see if it does enter into the competition of fastest best of 3 ever. In the bottom left, the cheeser, it is Dark. The top right, it is Stats. Very much less likely to cheese. Definitely no Cannon Rush. Maybe a Resonating Glaives build. Maybe. Dark is the one that we're looking at, waiting for a drone or something to be sent out. And so far, normal. But he does have up until about 7 minutes, I think, to fit in what we would call a cheese. So 6 minutes, maybe, to call it cheese. And then up to, 10 minutes to do any type of all-in. Which he just seems like he wants to be aggressive, so go for it. I guess because Stats did just defend a cheese flawlessly, it should now deter Dark from doing it again. I mean, if he really was just doing a newbie test, then Stats has finally passed. I would say he almost passed in the first game, too. If Dark thought that Stats was looking weak to cheese, it was literally just a Nidus Worm unseen. But that last game proved that Stats isn't weak to all cheeses at the very least. And so Dark might just go ahead and go for a more macro game and beat him down the old-fashioned way, because as I was saying, Dark is heavily favored in this entire group. GuMiHo is a really cool player, and he has taken down some powerful Zergs with some mech, for instance. Had his occasional really beautiful bio game as well, but shouldn't defeat Dark. Ryung, I think his worst matchup is TVZ, so I don't think he beats Dark. Dark definitely gets out first, and then as far as the next second place person, I actually have no idea. GuMiHo would be, and to me, again, favored, just because he's been performing really well. But, I mean, Ryung's really, it's weird, because Ryung is still, he is a player, but in my mind, I still think of him as more of a coach who just happens to be a really good player. Which is unfair. He has his own results, but GuMiHo only coming back as a player, I guess, never having a brief stint as a streamer and coach type of situation. But anyways, it still kind of goes back to the point I'm trying to make, which is that GuMiHo, Ryung, and Stats, despite all their places in StarCraft 2 right now, is freshly back, or sometimes more coaching than not, or, you know, weirder than normal, whatever. They're pretty capable of defeating each other. Yeah, but Dark, I don't know. Dark should be breezing through this opening group. But a simple proxy hatch with only roaches was not the best display of his dominance. Stats very easily took care of that. And now Stats is going to get scouted. It is a regular Stargate expand. Something that Stats was trying to do in the first game as well, and he got up to 3rd Nexus. He did throw in a handful more Adepts than you might expect, but okay, this is already going really poorly. 2 probes lost to this many Lings is bad. It's terrible, actually. 2 Lings for 2 probes. Yeah, the Zerg's pretty happy with that. And of course, a full scout delay on the Adept coming across the map as well. Everything good for the Zerg. That's just the truth right now. Did he actually see that Stargate? Yeah, he did. Even if he didn't, you know, you assume. Pretty much. Especially if he saw what's pumping out on the front lines with this Overlord, which he did. And then he also saw that the Adepts are still not in play. So he goes after that weak probe? No, actually, that's still alive. But he goes after 1 probe anyways. Oracle is forced to use Pulsar Beam over here. So these Lings will not get 2 probes by the looks of it. But they are once again doing a great job distracting. Stats giving very little credit to the idea of a follow-up all-in, by the way. If Dark was Ling all-inning, I think Stats would actually be dead. Because the unit in the wall is not enough if he really was all-inning. He might be able to react fast enough, I suppose, but Stats is just thinking this is a little cheeky couple of Lings. And fine otherwise. Let's get back on track, which is true. Dark is not doing any further dedicated Ling pressure, I suppose. Although he is getting a nicely timed lair again. Is he just going to do a Nidus Worm again? He's going to do a Nidus Worm again, isn't he? Of course he is. Anywho, and Stats is like, okay, gotta get back on track. Just like, leave it brief. Forget about it. Don't worry. Just move on with my life. It's fine. And it might be fine if he figures out that he is being all-in. Then I still think he has a better chance of defending, even with all this hubbub in the beginning. If you know an all-in's on the way, then it's fine. But Dark, is he actually all-inning, or is he playing... No, he's not gonna all-in, okay. So the lair was, I mean, pretty early. Oh wait, no, he might be. It's just not a Ling all-in like I was thinking. That is a lot of gas being taken, though. Literally all of his gases. Is he going into a fast spire? What the hell is this gonna be? Huh. Alright, Oracle's checking around as well. They want to figure this shit out. They're gonna see 3rd and 4th gas at the very least. Kill some drones on their way out. 1 Oracle gonna die. The Oracles will traverse through the entire 3 bases of Stats. They're gonna see all the gases. They're gonna see the Roach Warren. Click on it. It is gonna be a Nidus Worm. I didn't think you needed 6 gas to be doing a Nidus Worm. But he's literally filled up 6 gases. That's a lot of not mining from 48 drones. Not mineral mining. But alright then, yeah, the Nidus Worm's been scanned. It's known about, and Stats absolutely can defend against this. He was so good at defending in the first game, he just let 1 Nidus Worm pop up in his main, which he is now determined not to do. The Stalkers are already in place. I guess because he got gases so late, he does need like all the gases at once. So Ravagers are coming. Nidus Worm pops out. Queens are out. Very safe location for the Nidus Worm. Wasn't going to get canceled, but it is very far away, so the Queens will not be able to transfuse. Nidus Worm to the left is actually almost a distraction, which Stats might not be picking up on. There we go. Now sees the Roach Armor to the right side. And lickety split, Dark is banking a ton of gas. And he's building nothing but Lings to try and back this up. Nidus Worm in the natural, as Stats noticed. Thankfully he does, but does he have enough units? Those probes are not going to cut it as far as stopping this Nidus Worm from popping up. Stalker's being warped in, Oracle's flying over. It's going to be really close. And a Queen does not pop out. Very fortunate for Stats that no Queen was in there. Dark end up using that more as a distraction, but if the queens were in there, that actually might have been the winning blow. Although still combating a shield battery, a cannon, and an immortal that was going to pop out. Well, we'll never know, because that wasn't the actual attack. The attack still remains over on the third base, where a Nidus Swarm's going to pop up. Closer reinforcements, but also letting those queens once again get those transfuses out. Pylon is depowering all attack defense that Stats built to defend this third base, and Stats looks like he's going to get overwhelmed. In that first game, he dealt with the third base so damn well that Dark actually said, let's just try elsewhere, and it worked. Trying elsewhere worked. This time around, he said, you know what? I think I can actually take down that Nexus. And he was right about that. Stats perhaps not dedicating as much defense as necessary to the third base. But do keep in mind, it is still a pretty dedicated attack from Dark. I guess if Stats were to easily get a third base back up, he would have a shot in this game. Adepts also killed 6 drones, which I guess is something. There was a lot of Adepts, though. It could have been back at home. Yeah. No, Stats seems like he's going to be in a lot of trouble from this. Just under-defending that third base. Not expecting how much was going to be coming that way. Yeah, that's going to be... It's going to be tough to recover from. Stats has to get this third base up with this Nexus. If he has to cancel once again, he's very much dead. Now he's kind of dead, I guess. Oracle's run out of Pulsar Beams, so they can't stop the Nightstorm from coming up. The army is choked into the natural. A Warp Prism is going to be able to micro these Immortals, but doesn't look like they've been microing particularly well. One Immortal does go down. Yes, it did. And the Nexus will have to be canceled, and that puts Stats into an unrecoverable position, especially as Dark has moved on in his life, right? He is getting up to 62 drones, could get a 4th base with the amount of cash that he has. Sending everything back home, and I guess to start up that macro. He really has done enough damage at this point. Killing Simon X-Core too, kind of reducing the option of a counterattack if Stats had something to work with. Blinking +1, kind of something to work with. Dark's gonna go into Swarm Host afterwards, which is just brutal. It's just a brutal thing to do, but I think he could have done anything. I think he could have gotten to 4th base, 80 drones, played out the macro game. Well, not macro, but just, you know, a little longer. Given Stats the hope that he could come back in this game. Or he could have maxed out in Roach Ravager and killed him. Or he could go into Swarm Host and kill him as much of a humiliating way as possible. No one likes losing against Swarm Host. There's just something about him, man. There's something about him. But I think Dark at this point is kind of playing with his food. Yeah, supply gaps of this nature can be common against a Roach Ravager Swarm Host player, but Stats without a third base already secured with static defense really cannot recover this supply. His army is not anywhere close to that of Dark. If it was only this Roach Ravager army, Stats might be able to do something. Disruptor! Oh my god, got a great shot! And it doesn't matter. That's why Dark let it happen. It doesn't matter. This Disruptor maybe gets another shot because the Warp Prism's keeping it alive, but the shield battery does get destroyed. Locusts are on top of the army, and Stats will not be able to defend his way out of this one. GG. Dark, I want to say kind of playing it fast and loose by being an ultimate cheeser in this series. Like that first game, again, could have gone south, but in the third game, he did eventually use his cheese to just muscle his way through this victory. So that, I feel like if Dark just chose an aggressive opener in which he would always be able to kind of macro out of it, I think he would always win. It's the likes of an actual proxy hatch that is so supremely dedicated that it's just like, it just feels like wasting the potential of Dark. But he did it once, it lost, big deal. He goes on to dominate this series kind of overall. And Stats will now face the loser of Ryung GuMiHo. Let's go see what happens in the TVT. In the second preliminary match, the TVT, the top right it is Ryung, bottom left it is GuMiHo. So, I was talking a little bit about these guys in the last match, but now they're actually here in this TVT and no one seems to be too raxing. I can talk a lot about them. To me, Ryung still has that aura of less a full-time pro and more of a guy who just is very active in StarCraft 2. So he does play a lot, but he also talks to a lot of people, takes opportunities to coach because he's an elder for still a lot of the StarCraft guys, even though they've all been playing for a long time. And if he's not an elder, he's certainly a friend. And then he also is, to me, still more of like the strategy guy as well, which, I mean, he's always been very good at strategy. But, you know, when he was at his peak, he also had the highest mechanics that you could back in 2012 or 13, whatever it was. GuMiHo is also a bit of a strategy guy. His mechanics, I would say, have never really been his strong suit. And he has relied a little bit more on those tactics and strategy, the unique build orders, the unique compositions, the ability to play out of the meta, abuse positions on maps, and then with a solid enough macro foundation, of course, that he can actually win. He's not just purely going off of, you know, cheeses and hoping they win before 5 minutes. He's not that bad mechanically, just a little bit worse. So right now, as both of them have been along StarCraft 2 for a long time, both of them going to the military and then coming back. I really can't judge their mechanics to each other, but I can tell you that if we're talking strategy, Ryung has always been a TVT master. He was actually initially known as a TVT sniper. And in my opinion, feel free to disagree, but in my opinion, TVT is one of the least changed over the 13 years. Obviously, it has changed some, Ravens being far more into the meta than previous expansions, but it's not like the Raven thing is that new. Ryung's been playing with Raven openers since Legacy of the Void? Something like that. He's certainly been playing for years at this point, so that's not tripping him up. But in the terms of just when you play into the Marine tank versus Marine tank, a lot of those things are very similar to what they were 13 years ago, just everyone's a lot better with it. That's for sure. So I do favor Ryung in this particular TVT. I also think Ryung is very good in TVP, so I think he could win by defeating stats. But as I was saying, Ryung, not very good in TVZ. His mechanics, I think especially, are shown to be weak in that matchup, which is so mechanically demanding. And his strategy doesn't seem to doesn't seem to make up for that. Different phrase. Doesn't even make up for that in a way that GuMiHo does seem to occasionally, where he will go toe-to-toe with someone like Solar. Well, the TVT opener based on micro is not going so well for GuMiHo so far. Just was a little shocked to see the army right then and there. Does manage to bring it down to a 2v2 scenario, but now it's 1v2, and that Helene is in trouble. GuMiHo already moved over into Reactor and to get Marines, and that was only very recently finished. That's one of the weaknesses of getting Reactor at this time. So, the Snowball, little bit dangerous, but the SCV repair just good enough. Command center is delayed, and Ryung does get a little bit ahead because of that. Yeah, I think there was someone mowing the... I was gonna say mowing the lawn outside, and that's why the cats moved, but there is no lawn outside. So I don't know what it was. Someone was doing something. That's another reason why Colorado isn't quite as pretty, the lack of lawns, but you just learn to appreciate rocks, you know, rocks and succulents. And prairie dogs. There's a prairie dog field across the way. They're cute little suckers, but they do carry the Black Plague, I believe, so don't touch them. So GuMiHo's followed this up with a drop. Guess who else did it? Ryung followed up with a drop too. They both are thinking the same thing. Because I think even beyond that Reaper War, I think that the builds are the same. Yeah, like everything about this has been similar. It's just the micro war went so much better for Ryung. So that's kind of funny. Literally the same up until the medevac drop, which both are going for a Cyclone-based medevac drop. Now we have that difference with Ryung going into a second Cyclone and GuMiHo going into a tank. Now that second Cyclone from Ryung could get a lock on the medevac, and it's exactly what it does. That's really ideal. That's exactly why you'd want to get a second Cyclone right there. A tank might be sturdy, but obviously it can't shoot the medevac, and with the medevac still intact, it can micro this. Oh, the Cyclone! But Ryung messed up big time. That had a lock on. That could have gone way west and survived. And at the very least, you would have forced those SCVs off of mining for a longer period of time and more money into the repair, but he just lost the Cyclone instead. So that's that was primed to be very good for Ryung, and he did mess up. He did. I'm trying to micro on two different sides. You know, it is always difficult, no doubt about it. But oh my god, that was so close to not being picked up on time. GuMiHo was trying to cheat the system, man. He's trying to get that one shot a little bit faster to his opponent's Cyclone and then pick his up before the projectile hit. His Cyclones will absolutely kill each other. They'll throw out the same bullet at different times, but ultimately still kill each other. Didn't quite work out, though, and now they both are repairing all their units back up. Very similar on the accounts of Ravens and Marines and SCVs. Not so similar on the tank count, of which GuMiHo has about a 1.5 lead. Probably not big enough to really make a big difference in TVT. But as we do head into more of the positioning TVT, this is where I would say that Ryung has been better historically than GuMiHo. But I'm kind of comparing Ryung again at his heights mechanically and full-time professional, as well as a higher height of StarCraft 2 Korean esports, and GuMiHo just overall. So that's a little bit of bias. You know, Ryung still has a great grasp on the matchup, but it doesn't mean he's super favored. And in fact, he's found out of position, so very much not favored. Very much not so. One tank gets destroyed, second tank could be gone as well. Fortunately, it's out of range of GuMiHo's tanks, so it's not going to fall down. Or at least not to the tank of his opponent, but to the auto turret, that's a different story. This one tank of Ryung trying to save his buddies was unsuccessful. And he didn't get much punish on it either. It's not like the guys died for the greater good. No, Ryung's tanks did just die. And now Ryung is in a lot of trouble. He tried to take third base without knowing exactly when and where his opponent was pushing in, and he paid the price for it. He was not in position. His Raven wasn't in position. His tanks weren't as well sieged. They all could be. And even his Vikings, you know, could have maybe started to get some pot shots earlier on. You know, if Ryung had seen this army as it moved here, and his Vikings were here, I think it turns out very, very differently. But that is not the case. Ryung has gone into faster stim, so that might give him an opportunity to bust out of this contain and then do some crazy Super Saiyan stuff, try and go all over the map and do a bunch of damage, but he'd have to break out of this contain first, and that is looking unlikely. GuMiHo is choosing to rally forward on a lot of his units as well, which does get more and more dangerous. The more that the TVT goes on, the more likely Medivacs and Marines in Medivacs will make an appearance on your side of the map. Ryung choosing a well-timed Liberator, while he still has some control over the skies. He actually doesn't. It's just that GuMiHo has landed his Vikings. So I don't know why GuMiHo's letting this happen. Yeah, maybe you don't have to. It's 8 Vikings to 5. But I guess with 2 interference matrix. Oh, target fires the Raven. Doesn't actually kill it. And then target fires other things. The lock-on will kill the Raven, but this was less dominating in the skies than I was expecting. Finally, though, even after all those interference matrix, there you have it. GuMiHo wins in the sky. Liberator was not repositioned during the battle. Too many things were going on. So that also finally gets taken down. And now both players are up to stam. Ryung, he had a faster third CC, but it's not mining. It's not producing. GuMiHo's was slower, but on location. Obviously able to transfer workers over there. He's doing fine. Ryung is not. Ryung really does need to hope that he could bust out of this and immediately counterattack with, well, not even faster stim at this point, actually. Not even faster combat shield. So it's less and less likely that I'll win. Both of them also miss macroing because, well, Ryung is contained. He has more of an excuse. GuMiHo not as much. He needs to spend his money. GuMiHo did not get up to 5 barracks as quickly as Ryung, and is now doing so, but a little bit later. Ryung is supposed to have not just minerals mining on the minerals, but he's also supposed to have these gases, which is really screwing him up, I think. 1-1 is slightly faster for Ryung, but again, breaking out of this contain super difficult. So what does Ryung do? He was already getting Medivacs. He already gave up on the Viking War. That's why he was losing it in the first place. And he went into Medivacs, picks up his Marines, heads across the map. GuMiHo should have this in mind, that at some point, Ryung's only choice is to do a Doom Drop. But he's a little bit late in those missile turrets. The timing here, still good enough for Ryung to do some serious damage. That's not a lot of reinforcements back at home for GuMiHo. And 1-1 is done for both players at this point. Yeah, everything's done. Combat shield seconds away from finishing, but with the SCV pull and the Vikings taking the Medivacs out of the sky, these Marines of GuMiHo will be doing well enough. Now, 14 SCVs did go down, but GuMiHo had actually oversaturated to begin with. He was oversaturated on his third base, so transferring some workers, building just a couple more, really not a problem. He's still ahead in workers. So Ryung didn't even this game up with that. And of course, he lost all that army doing so. Here's the attempted break. Is GuMiHo paying attention? Yes, he is. I thought the Vikings might land, but I was wrong. Here comes the rest of Ryung's army, and the Vikings are trying to get out of dodge, but they are going to be quite slow. Anti-armor missile, because what else are the Raven going to do? And here are the reinforcements of GuMiHo. Ryung still has a chance in this game as his army supply remains even with his opponents. But as the economies have been so damn different for so long, that should change very soon. GuMiHo is just taking so long to get to his 4th and 5th barracks. They still don't have reactors on him. That's what's holding him back. I wasn't wrong about him being ahead in this game due to that contain. What I was not anticipating was, well, a lot of macro mistakes. And I know I pointed out these guys aren't the best mechanically, but even then, it's usually very, very subtle. Not 1,000 minerals and 4th and 5th barracks done at 11:20, as opposed to, I think Ryung had them done at 8 minutes? 9 minutes? Point is a huge difference. And that does have to do slightly with the build orders, yes, but it's also the humongous banking that GuMiHo was doing. So that's why Ryung has a chance. Like, GuMiHo really should have had this locked up nice and tight, but is still not as ahead as I think he could have been. He still is ahead. He should still win this game. But I think that's one of the big reasons why Ryung has had the chances that he's had. GuMiHo's going into 4th base, so of course going to continue his lead economically. He does have those 2 factories as well, and now all 5 barracks are pumping away on reactors. He actually swapped Tech Lab for reactors. That also took up some additional time, but rewards him with more production later on. Liberator's going to get taken down. Ryung has a massive amount of Marines, and GuMiHo's Marines were actually kind of stuck, frankly, on the left side. So that positioning wasn't as abusive as GuMiHo was hoping. Another drop, actually, from GuMiHo this time into Ryung's base. Not going to get a whole lot. It was a single Marine drop. A single drop with Marines, rather, so it really was just there to kill SCVs. And it did not do that. Single tank left alone. Ryung scanning around, saying, why the heck are all these units open? Sees the Marines on the left, and the Marines don't even try to dive. Which I think is good, by the way, but it's just, they look like they were going to dive, and then they don't even. They just are like, oh, sorry, tank, my bad. And then they run away. GuMiHo is at least keeping on top of his upgrades. +3 is far ahead of Ryung at this point. But if Ryung can use this about 2-minute gap of which he has even upgrades with his opponent, he still has a good army supply. So, and the upgrades are even his good army supply. What doesn't he have? Probably a tank count? No, actually, he still has a good tank count. Even though GuMiHo's been pumping on 2 factories for much longer, Ryung doesn't even have 2 factories. So there you go. GuMiHo has lost more tanks, 10-6. Also lost 14 Vikings, so he dedicated a lot to controlling the air in that contain, which again eventually did get broken. So perhaps another misplay from GuMiHo. I don't want to just blame GuMiHo. I guess I'll take a second and just, kind of say, okay, this is Ryung proving he's really good at TVT. So I feel validated for that. But as someone who's watched this 13-minute game going on 14 minutes, it does kind of feel more like GuMiHo is messed up in a couple of key places. Feel free to disagree with me on that, but you barely ever see these rocks broken down. My goodness. You guys even know that those are rocks there? No one bothers breaking these down. It's the tiniest little choke cover. But it is going to be unscouted. That Sunstar did not cover that. GuMiHo's not covering that. GuMiHo's going to scan a 3rd base completely alone. SCV's going to get slaughtered. What he doesn't know as of yet is that there's absolutely no army backing him. Well, now he knows, actually, as we start a base trade. Good old-fashioned base trade. It is a full-on base trade, actually, so Ryung needs to go ahead and go to the main base of his opponent. The main base is free. He's going to gun it. That's exactly what he needs to do. GuMiHo ditto. You just got to go for each other's production and then hope that you win out with the army that you do end up saving. For Ryung, army supply is still similar. He jumps on top of the tanks, producing for GuMiHo. Gets that last one, hopefully. Tanks over here are actually getting bombarded accidentally, but should win that battle. Actually, I'm not sure what hit those things, but something did. And now our full-on base trade is really complete economically. Ryung has no mining, GuMiHo has some mining. But in terms of army supply and type, I don't know if that's as settled. 51 Marines for GuMiHo, 0 tanks. 5 tanks for Ryung, and less than half the number of Marines. You really do want to cancel that +3. Holy shit, cancel the +3. Oh my god, get that +3! What the hell? Oh my god, he's got a +3 finish! Oh no. Ryung. Ryung, come on. Come on. That's very unfortunate, because literally GuMiHo has twice the amount of Marines. And now they're however many times as good. That's insane. Because +3 armor is still not being canceled either. And the tanks are going to blow apart this planetary, but that planetary it did what it needed to do. It gave GuMiHo enough time to build up resources, so he built 4 factories and still has a bank. He is looking to produce tanks to make up for his complete lack of tanks. Unfortunately for Ryung, he's not going to catch both upgrades. Only caught the one. Ryung at 0 SCVs, but 2 orbital commands still alive. GuMiHo, 16 SCVs, and I don't know how many orbitals alive. 3 orbitals alive. 1 back to mining, in fact, in the gold base. SCVs going over there as well. Ryung, he's in the position to lose this game, absolutely, because he has no mobility. He needs his tanks to even try to win a battle, and that's not even guaranteed, actually. If GuMiHo has a good concave, that's not guaranteed. And the +3 attack is going to ruin any chance at Ryung picking off a few spare units, you know? Because, like this, for instance, there's about the same number of Marines for these 2 armies, because this one was so far away. Ryung might have been able to win that, or at least take a decent trade, or whatever you want to call it, if +3 wasn't done for GuMiHo. But instead, if Ryung's looking on those Marines, he basically has to never take Marine fights. Even when it looks ideal. Sensor tower does also get taken down. Lack of information, still very important here in a base trade. GuMiHo has planted all of his orbitals and his factories, which are now building tech labs. He's still building from his main base as well. Ryung has to play a very, very big game of whack-a-mole. There are a lot of things to try and find, and very few resources to find. Such things. No scans. Could lift his barracks and use them as scouters, I guess. Actually, he probably should. Probably should just use his barracks as scouters. He's not going to be rebuilding anytime soon. He's going to try and rebuild, but he's supply blocked, right? So, yeah, you just use your guys for scans. So might as well use your barracks for scouting. Well, this is good. This is great, actually. GuMiHo is supply blocked anyways himself and needed way more than 1 supply depot. But he's going to lose all his factories. And again, GuMiHo, he might win if he catches Ryung's tanks on siege and has one hell of a concave or surround. But you'd feel a lot better in a TVT if you also had tanks, wouldn't you? Excellent move here by Ryung as well. A single medevac going to what he knows, the vulnerable orbital command. His orbital scouted that and then landed. All the SCVs of GuMiHo going to be destroyed, all but 3, and I don't know where they are. Orbital 1C, he wants to get it burning. I'm not sure he's going to be able to do that. Nah, not quite, not quite. Well, this one actually did die. Ryung's attempt to get back to mining. Well, not even. He just wanted a place to land is all he wanted, actually. His attempt to land his orbital did not work out very long. This drop continues on. It's going to go to the main base, of which I think Ryung knows he didn't kill everything. Oh, no, he does think. So that was those lifted. And now he's going to lose 8 Marines and a medevac. Oh, my God, is he, though? Oh, that was a missile turret. Lol, this random ass missile turret. Another base is found. Orbital down. GuMiHo still has 2 to 1. Still has 3 barracks, but of course no supply depots. Is building a tank somehow. Somehow at some point he was able to get that out. 2 tanks actually. This is a second tank. And with a second tank, he can hold this high ground. Ryung's gotta be really careful about this. Ryung has to be super careful. Medevac should boost forward and check out what's going on. GuMiHo's coming back with his army. If he can get a surround here, it'd be perfect. A surround would be good enough, especially with that upgrade helping out. Second tank pops for GuMiHo as well. He's going to lift the barracks for that free scouting. And here we go. GuMiHo setting up the trap. The jaws are closing. And there's not much that Ryung can do. The most he can do is get on this high ground, but 3 tanks are going to unsiege. Is GuMiHo going to gun it? Oh no, it's Ryung who's going to gun it. He unsieges the tanks, get him closer. He tries to unload his medevac as well, but that actually did not go so well. 3 tanks, 2 tanks fire on the ramp will not be good enough either. And that is it. GuMiHo will take game number 1, in which he had a winning position since minute 7. But Ryung just kept on hanging on. He is good at TVT. Woof. That was a fun TVT. Let's get in the game 2. In the bottom right of Babylon, it is GuMiHo now up 1 after winning that base trade. In the top left, it is Ryung, who made a really bad TVT. Well, not even decision. He just was caught out of position. He made the worst mistake you can make in TVT. Caught out of position. And he ended up paying the price by losing the game, because ultimately it goes back to that. Even though that game went on for 12 more minutes. The game went back to that. Ryung was always behind. And like I was saying in the game, I really think that Ryung should have been behind even more. But GuMiHo, I believe, overmade Vikings and mismacroed. Now, Ryung also had some mismacro too, but his was more excusable again because he lacked a third command center and such 5th and 6th gases. But GuMiHo, he built, what did I say he ended up building? Like 15 Vikings, something like that? 12 to 15, which didn't really end up helping beyond the first Viking War. When he had 8 to 5, he was already winning the Viking War, right? And then just kept producing them. And so he wasn't making medevacs, which, I mean, may or may not have been a better choice, I guess. But one thing he definitely didn't do was build a 4th and 5th barracks very quickly. He was building his 2nd and 3rd barracks when Ryung was building his 4th and 5th. And that came down to the build order choices. That came down to what they were trying to build and what they were trying to accomplish, such as GuMiHo continuing to pump out Vikings, which are 50 more minerals, right, than a medevac. But then the 4th and 5th barracks were really late. That was after his 1,000 mineral banking. So that was a huge moment to lose out on, I think, a lot of momentum. Just not so much that he lost control of the game. He had so much momentum that even such a terrible mistake like that to make in the pro scene of StarCraft 2 did not end up losing him the game. That's how ahead he was. So I think it's the way I'm going to put it to validate my opinion on that game, which was that GuMiHo should have won after the tanks were caught off guard and instead had to play a 19-minute game that ended in a base trade that kind of was still a little sketch. It was still a little sketch. Like, he was supposed to win it, but it was getting a little scary. But yes, GuMiHo does win at game number 1, and not totally convincingly. Ryung doesn't get caught out of the same position, which is impossible on a new map, and he's much better off. Now I'm just gonna let my bias continue here. I think Ryung is ultimately the better TV tier. I'm gonna continue being that biased person. What is weird though is the way of winning this group. If I think most of us agree that Dark is a should win to win first, how does the next guy win? For Ryung, weirdly enough, I could see him losing this TVT, of course not on purpose, but I could see him losing the TVT, facing stats in a TVP and winning, and then facing GuMiHo in a rematch and winning the TVT there, because they are going to be really close, and of course there's the rematch curse, of course. For GuMiHo, say he loses here, faces stats, I think he has a good chance of winning against stats, of course. I think he has a very good chance. Then he rematches against Ryung, presumably. I feel like Ryung is going to get better with TVT as these games go. He's going to be a lot more comfortable in TVT. I am just assuming that Sats loses out on 4th, obviously. That's the narrative I'm going with. But I guess it's not insane that Sats would make it out in 2nd. He faces either of these guys. His PVT is surprisingly good. Then another PVT in the decider match. No. PVT's really hard right now. I don't know if Stats has figured it out any more than any other Protoss has. Not that I'm just like, I actually, the more I think about it, the more I just don't see any way for Stats forward, but I'd be happy to be wrong. I've done a lot of totally useless GSL group calculations in my head. Point is, what's happening in this game too? Ryung is going into the same build as GuMiHo and vice versa. Indeed. Oh, Cyclone versus Tank, actually. GuMiHo went for a tank first, so 0 Cyclones, which is kind of dangerous. You don't have that mobile defense against drops and the like, sure, but you also have really no map control. Not even a chance to go on the map and catch your opponent's Cyclone or your opponent's Raven or something like that. And you probably figure that they have a Cyclone, so you're not going to try and send, your tank out to do that. That's not pretty. But of course, what you get when you produce that tank first is a lot of very solid defense, I guess. If they try and go up this ramp, they're not getting up the ramp. And then you have one tank more than them for the rest of the game, presumably. And tanks are still king in TVT. And with the high tank count, I of course assume that Vikings will be on the way. It'd be very odd if you just suddenly went into medevacs. There you go. Viking to Viking. 3 Ravens to 2. Ryung saying at 2 Ravens should have a higher Viking count. Oh, he's 20 seconds faster on the Vikings. And then everything else is pairing up quite nicely. Ryung gonna go for an on-location third command center after the way he lost last game. It's a bit bold. But he is also trying to get his units out and scouting. He's got units going through the middle. He's got some units off to the right side to catch anything sneaky over there. Do they know they're about to hit each other? Now they do. Tank siege up first for GuMiHo. Ravens get the interference matrix first for Ryung. But GuMiHo is right behind him, and now we just have a stalemate. Like, cool, bro, cool. Third Raven not being able to help out enough. And oh no! Huh. GuMiHo actually losing a tank there, so that just took away his supposed tank lead. Viking counts continue to be very similar, slightly in favor of Ryung. GuMiHo also went for an on-location third base, but Ryung's was a bit faster, and it looks like he will be able to secure that too, so he will stay ahead on the economy, at least by a little bit. And there you have it, once again, sending some units over to the right side to catch any attempts to reposition, but then also these units could get a cheeky lock-on and some reinforcing tank. In this case, they find the actual army. Don't get a lock-on, but micro it well enough, and Ryung knows that he's pretty safe on this side of the map, and now he knows where his opponent's army is. Clever tank positioning there for GuMiHo. Blasts away the Cyclone off that map, and GuMiHo, by the way, is definitely going into mech. That is 2 tanks already being produced, 2 factories. Ryung not picking up on this so far. Did he? Actually, he might have. That looks like a second factory to me. Okay, so he does know. So he should be getting some tech labs once his barracks are done. But for now, it's Vikings and tanks and Ravens. Oh my. An anti-armor missile from Ryung. It's a little weird. I'm not sure it's super effective, but his Viking war is winning out for him. So Ryung still has 4 Vikings to his opponent's 3. Still building them as well. Eventually, he should move away from Vikings, even for a little bit. But I guess, you know, if you have momentum against a mech player in the air, you should probably try and keep it. Because that's not really supposed to happen. At some point, like the Terran player, the mech player continues building Vikings. The bio player moves on to medevacs. But if you are winning, and obviously you own the air, you can get a Liberator and really screw up a mech player's day. So Ryung's probably thinking something along those lines. Doesn't want to be caught out of position by a mech player. That would be weird, but that seems to be happening. GuMiHo's going right up the middle, and Ryung has a tank siege, and Vikings could land, but that's about it. Army's coming back. Oh, he caught GuMiHo's Vikings and Ravens! Oh no! I think GuMiHo did maybe purposefully leave them behind, hoping to catch some units off guard, but if it was on purpose, it's definitely regret. It's full of regrets. That's a lot of production already set up for Ryung. For GuMiHo as a mech player, his production is just going to be less. 2 tanks in the high going with an SCV pull. It's looking quite scary. Vikings of Ryung not choosing to land. Gonna go for the safe call. Ryung did save his 3rd command center, so it's not really a base trade. It is an SCV trade, though. Auditor are going to help so much against these SCVs. Vikings end up landing now, and they're going to massacre the SCVs, those poor workers. And they're not even killing the units. Look how slowly they... Finally they kill the tanks. 33 SCVs were killed for GuMiHo. He's now down by 20. Saves his 3rd CC, has a 4th about to finish, so I guess he might actually recover economically, but he is so far behind on that production. As a mech player, you always are, but then he doesn't even have 5 factories. He has 2. So he's gonna run out of steam. Especially if he starts taking poor trades with his tanks. Now, if he could keep all of his tanks that we currently see alive, 10 tanks, and grow that number, he might be able to play a perfect defensive game. But he's choosing to go aggressive. He thinks he might have a moment, and if he does get in position with 10 tanks, I guess you can't really disagree with him. But can you get in position with 10 tanks against someone you know is going into bio? They could already be out on the map. They could be setting up a surround. They could catch you unsieged. It's still very scary. Ryung is trying to set up a bit of a surround, bring whatever units that he can off to the side, waiting for combat shields to finish. He's got a Raven that could get 1 very useful interference matrix. 3rd CC has to be evacuated. That tank is going to go down! Jeez. 1 second away from losing that tank. With the Vikings all sacrificed to try and get it. A scan ends up having to be used, so not a very good use of the Vikings. Ryung is not going to try and go for that surround. He's going to try instead go for a counterattack, take advantage of the reinforcement line as well. So caught another Viking right there. Going to massacre the SCVs yet again, which he's been doing over and over and over and over and over again. GuMiHo going to lose his 3rd orbital this time around. Check on the 4th base, which GuMiHo, so courageously tried to get as a planetary. And I missed something big because he just taps out at that point. What happened on the fight? Oh, a Liberator showed up. LOL! He has a Vikings. Yeah, okay, that would do it. That would do it. He was going to lose, kind of no matter what. He was not going to be able to sustain that contain with his limited economy, but it's kind of funny that one Liberator shows up and GG. All right, Ryung brings it back on to game 3. We have 5 cats in total. You guys might even see Nixie. Whoop. Here's a best of 3. Now it's tied up 1-1. In the top left, we have Ryung. In the bottom right, it is GuMiHo. Hope you guys like my cat's butt. They're being cute. Oh my goodness. You guys helped them to be cute. Okay, so Dragon Scales. GuMiHo tried out some mech last game, did not end up working out. I mean, I think I was gonna say a big reason that it ended up working out was that it never actually gained control of the skies, but thinking back to one of their first engagements, that didn't go so well for GuMiHo. They really could have gone a lot better, 3 Ravens to 2. But he didn't really end up using the 3rd Raven, because he, I guess, couldn't use it very effectively, so it was 2 to 2, it was a bit of a wash, and then Ryung was the one who actually killed GuMiHo's tank. And then some of that weird pseudo almost base trade movement on the map did not favor the slower player in terms of production and repositioning, which of course is the mech player, which is GuMiHo. So kind of makes sense. Think about the dynamic of bio versus mech. GuMiHo almost made it a bit scary by being weirdly aggressive, because sometimes it does catch people off guard. They think, okay, they're going to be on the defense, I'll have time to roam around, and then suddenly 14 tanks show up inside of your bases. And you try to return home to take care of it, but they're already sieged up, abusing your own ramp against you. Didn't quite work out that way, though, and because he had lost the Viking War and sacrificed all his Vikings, a 1 Liberator was a huge problem. So it wasn't really the prettiest win, I suppose, for Ryung at that point, but I do feel like he was playing a really tight game, kind of overall, with the first victory, first battle going so well for him. GuMiHo was trying something a little bit different. Didn't work out. See if he tries mech again on this map, Dragon Scales. Ryung's going for a different opener. So far, they've been going for very similar starting builds. This time around, we do have a severe difference. Ryung going into... No, sorry, that's the opposite. GuMiHo going into multiple Reapers at a time. Ryung just adding on a reactor after his single Reaper. So this is kind of funny, though. There's such a weird dynamic when it comes to TVT openings and whether or not you add a reactor and when you add a reactor. Because, you know, reactor eventually gives you more production. So it is an investment. If you invest now, you might be rewarded later. And if you don't invest now, maybe you'll be hurt later. Or you invest now and then that's when they strike you, so your investment never gets to show off. You know, like it's kind of funny. But it looks like with Ryung adding on reactor that fast to go right into his own double Reapers, he will have a totally defined defensive position. But ditto for GuMiHo if Ryung were to be the first one to shoot. So now it just literally comes down to who shoots first. They both are doing very similar builds at the end of the day, just slightly different ways to get there. GuMiHo is still continuing to build Reapers, and there is that difference. Finally, Ryung choosing to stop at 3. So that's a very safe amount of units. And then you have the reactor pumping out 2 Marines at a time. That will gather Marines rather quickly. You'll have a decent number of Marines to hopefully stand your ground, although he is skipping them right now. Getting as much money as possible for that orbital command, which should be prioritized. And then Widow Mine being snuck into this build order might help out. Might. Unfortunately for Ryung, GuMiHo is going for the medevac version. This is a cheese. I'd call it a cheese. I'd call it cheesy. It does depend a little bit on not being scouted, which is quite likely, I guess, in TVT, where suicidal Reapers aren't actually that common. You're too busy being wary of early game Reaper attacks. You don't send your Reaper willy-nilly across the map to get a scout. So it can be an instantaneous win. Like this could all get into the main base and Ryung just has to tap out. Or the medevac could fly right into that cyclone and die. which one's it going to be. Raven of Ryung is looking to go for some harassment, which might be very ill-timed. Actually doing a little bit of scouting, which is a good idea, but it's just not going to be successful here. That's too bad that Raven was so close to scouting this. Unfortunately, it's going to be everything coming in at once before Ryung has any idea. He is quick to respond. You got to pull those SCVs. Look at these split. Tank is going to siege up in a really good position to save the SCVs, and that's kind of what's most important about that. If the SCVs are pulled, but then the tank can't help them, the SCVs are roasted. Interference Matrix will stop any medevac from healing or lifting units to micro them. Second, Raven comes out, could drop an auto turret, deciding not to. It looks like Ryung believes he's got this locked up, and I think he does. Most of the army of GuMiHo has been taken down. Medevac taken down by the Cyclone, and 3 Reapers are just going to try and get as much damage done to the SCVs as possible before dying. And how much is that going to be? That's only the 3rd SCV right there. That's not enough. Because while the overall supplies might not look that bad, consider what the actual supplies are for both of them. The Reapers really are just trying to buy as much time as possible. Now going up to 5 SCVs is looking better. Nope, stops at 4. But let's look at the actual army type. 2 tanks to 1 in favor of Ryung. 2 Ravens to 1 in favor of Ryung. Those are pretty important units. A Cyclone to help out as well. He could counterattack and hope to find some wiggle room. GuMiHo is anticipating that and actually looking to kind of like stop it before it starts. GuMiHo has also gone into a very quick second barracks. Okay, so that's a big difference with the follow-up. I mean, very much the opposite of what he did last game, which is go into a faster second factory. But this is not going to prioritize tanks much at all. It is absolutely going to be about the mobility and the Marines of GuMiHo. So he's really changed up the style. Ryung should be very shocked by this. It kind of goes in line with the opening. GuMiHo went for a very aggressive Reaper Hellion opener into a, I would say, kind of aggressive follow-up, more into Marines. But for Ryung to anticipate that, just based off the opening, probably not what's going to happen. Ryung is going to see the number of Marines his opponent has, though, and say, oh, okay, I know what you did there. But that means that, yeah, 1 less Raven at the very least. Ideally, 1 less tank, although currently not happening. Raven of GuMiHo is actually going for some drive-bys. It's going to kill a lot of SCVs. 6 SCVs, not bad, but the Raven is now gone. So that's 2 Ravens to 0, and Ravens are still pretty strong. They are nearing that time, though, in which Marine numbers will just be better than a couple of Raven spellcasters, especially if the Ravens die. Talking to the Cyclone, actually, but not before the medevac goes down, so GuMiHo's going to have to get out the old-fashioned way. Did not end up interrupting the 3rd CC of his opponent, but as I was saying, Ryung should now have a good idea as to the follow-up that GuMiHo chose. He just saw a bunch of Marines with medevac stim away, so he knows that he's going to be very late to stim, obviously, but then, of course, late to combat shields, most likely late to those upgrades, which absolutely is the case, and Ryung has to play the more defensive, close to the vest type of game, where GuMiHo gets to have kind of a lot of fun, basically. 13 SCVs in total killed for Ryung. Has put him behind by 4. And he's slightly out of position here. He's going to lose his control over the 3rd. Although it gets a little awkward. Those Marines without combat shields don't want to stim into the tanks, so they just kind of died anyways. That was actually kind of weird. I thought he might pull the Marines back or try and still kill that tank before it killed his, but nope, that was less dramatic than I was giving it credit for. That ended up being no problem. Ryung just literally 1 interference matrix. Nope, no problem. We're good. Cool, cool. I would have panicked. I would have straight up panicked. So, 3rd CC is secured. Tanks are trying to be as best positioned as possible, but Dragon Scales has a lot of room. I'm surprised you don't have a faster center tower, actually, especially because Ryung can't afford it right now. Well, kind of. I guess he's not producing a tank. I don't know. I would actually not mind skipping a tank for a center tower. Okay, cool. Ryung agrees with me. Smart. Smart. A little bit faster than the center tower. Does eventually get the resources for another tank. Finishing up his 4th and 5th barracks, but still very far behind on stim. Sorry, on combat shields now. And 1-1. So GuMiHo still has complete map dominance. Going to take advantage of that by getting a 4th command center on location. He's got a double drop set up just in case he thinks his opponent's not paying attention. And he is trying to circumvent the sensor tower and catch Ryung off guard, but a scan is one damn revealing tell. Oh, Terrans scare my natural? They're probably not going to run up into it. Who says that? No one that to, because they always running after it. In fact, I want to see more fake scans. I want to see more scans that say, I'm going to rush after you, and then they don't. Big brain. So GuMiHo, he's not going to actually be able to abuse this position. Ryung is now on to his tricks and was probably already very paranoid of that particular section, so he knew that would maybe be weak. He had to pay attention, send his Marines out one after another to get that scout. GuMiHo's still holding on to however many supply this is on the left, so keep that in mind when we look at the actual armies going head to head. It's like 20 army supply off to the left side, not doing anything. Although, I guess now ditto for Ryung, who is not only depending on these 2 Vikings anymore. He brought his entire air force over to the left. Which is warranted. I think he's also especially paranoid of that because he keeps on scanning this army and it's not growing, I guess, as much as we might expect. The last reinforcements joined up 30 seconds ago. 40 seconds ago, something. The rest of them are staying at home and or in medevacs about to fly into his base, right? So, gotta be wary of that, but now that he thinks it's okay, he's pushed back some of the scouting, he sees no medevacs hovering around to go for that doom drop. Ryung is going to now send his units out of position. It looks like he's replaced the Vikings and Ravens with Marines and missile turrets, which is certainly a less costly in terms of supply as well as resources. So I like that. Yes, played the slow and steady game very, very well. GuMiHo, unfortunately, not able to really use his follow-up, I think, to the ideal. The ideal really would have been just continuing to hammer the defensive Terran. You know, first 3 per Hellion, then the 2 medevac drop, then the attack on the front lines, then stop them from getting a 3rd CC as fast as they want, stop them from getting a 4th CC as fast as they want. I don't know if this is going to actually stop the 4th CC from coming down, all before 2-2 is actually done. Anti-air missile also affecting this battle, and GuMiHo with a misread and bad timing gets pushed away from that 4th planetary, which will now become a planetary very safely. That was actually a big mistake there from GuMiHo, because even if the 2-2 was done, he just underestimated how much army was close enough to cover those tanks, and of course the effect of an anti-air missile. That doesn't mean that GuMiHo is dead and out, though. As you can see, his supply quickly matching Ryung's once again, but that was the breathing room that Ryung maybe not needed, but liked. You know, he just took down that portion of the army. That was GuMiHo's attempt to break him, and he totally defended it. So now he's like, oh, okay, phew, let's move on to the next stage. And that next stage of TVT is the multiple starport, which Ryung, I think, is going to be very proficient in. GuMiHo, as a mech player more often than any other Terran player, I suppose, should also be quite comfortable at that stage, but he's not there yet. He has not built his additional starports. He has not. Now it's Ryung's turn to get something on the map. Cancels a 5th command center by the looks of it. Or maybe he killed it. Oh, he killed it. Shit. Sure. And, battle in the middle of the map. We got tanks sieging up first for GuMiHo, and Ryung was in a very bad choke. Certainly more choked up than GuMiHo was, but at least Ryung's tanks also siege. Will hold on for a couple of seconds later, longer, but that's it. GuMiHo quick to picking up and jumping on top of them. Ryung has a drop in the main base of his opponents, but it is much smaller, much easier to deal with than all of these tanks should they reposition. But so far, GuMiHo not repositioning, is losing SCVs back at home. We'll clean this up, but not anytime, well, not soon enough, not fast enough. And what is happening here? 2 Marines almost killed a tank on the high ground. Yeah, finally this drop is cleared up, but that was all time that GuMiHo had to take clearing that up, not trying to siege hop his tanks forward. And I have no doubt that he might have had the ability to multitask. It's just that that point in time, you really do have to prioritize safety and level-headedness. So say he thinks, you know what, I can defend this and unsiege my tanks and move forward. He's not scanning ahead. He can't send Marines ahead. He doesn't know if Libera's about to siege up on him. What if he doesn't siege his tanks fast enough? The leapfrog had so much more risk to it than just keeping them sieged and dealing with the drop at home. So I actually like that he was kind of passive, but that does give Ryung a much necessary minute to recover his supply, particularly his tank count, and then try and do something about GuMiHo's army encroaching on his side of the map. GuMiHo, not even losing his tanks out unfairly, manages to trade and get into position. Ryung's tanks want to cover the planetary, but they also want to make sure that they're actually sieged to engage. And there it is. Tanks are all siege for GuMiHo. What is Ryung doing, man? That was a nasty loss of Marines. Did he not realize how many tanks were back there?
Is under attack.
If there was like 4 tanks siege, I imagine a concave of Marines would work, but holy shit, that was so many tanks. And GuMiHo has 3-3 upgrades ahead of his opponent. Ryung's 3-3, still 15 seconds away. Planetary to the top right should be canceled and lifted, but not going to be bothered with. Ryung is in a ton of trouble. GuMiHo controlling this mid-game very well. Ryung was trying to start up his starport transition, but never really able to get there securely. Despite, you know, he won the battle over here 2 minutes ago, but then he lost this one so severely, he really had to prioritize rebuilding a ground army and, you know, the fast army that could be rebuilt. So his starport transition now looks more like a weakness. He is trying to get back into it, and he sends all of his Marines down the center of Dragon Scales, cancels a bunch of buildings, gets that orbital, and is going to try and run away while he's at it. And he might just be able to do so. Nothing's stopping him so far. A couple of SCVs went down as well. GuMiHo still with plenty of extra command centers at the bottom left corner and the middle right at this point, turning into a planetary. GuMiHo also prioritized getting into that tank upgrade. Oh, which Ryung also managed to finish up. I thought he was much later to that. Never mind. So it is all even upgrades. All even. And GuMiHo is going to have vehicle plating, which really won't matter a lot for tanks or medevacs, but it does help them. But I'm thinking more about the eventual Viking War, which I'm sure GuMiHo is also thinking about. So GuMiHo does have his starports up now, but has... Oh, wait, didn't he? Am I... Oh, they were all canceled. I was like, wait a minute. Oh, those were all canceled. Those were all the buildings that he canceled. Okay, okay. Well, that does make it a little bit interesting then. If Ryung is maxed out, and he has a stronger air army, and he does, with 6 Ravens, you know, theoretically, his army is kind of better. Yeah, that's 18 tanks for GuMiHo, so that's why I'm kind of like, is it better? I don't know. But 6 Ravens is a decent amount. 18 tanks is amazing. Holy shit, they're all on siege, though, and Ryung's gonna go for it. Oh my god, GuMiHo completely on siege, had no idea he was about to be attacked. He has so many tanks that he still managed to take some type of trade, but oh my god. Goodbye tank count. Vikings land, Marines drop out, and Ryung has just gotten a massive W on the army count, but is going to lose out on his other 4th base, which he really needed. He now has no 4th base, no ability to make a command center. He's got to land orbitals everywhere, which is going to make him very vulnerable to these run-bys. And GuMiHo is still very calmly mining off of, well, most of his bases. A single Liberator being a surprising nuisance, but GuMiHo has got his 3rd base back on location. He had to rebuild it. He rebuilt it. His 4th actually became an orbital, or his 5th, or whatever it is at this point. And GuMiHo is still swimming in cash. Ryung might have found an amazing engagement, but he cannot remax, and that is going to be the ultimate problem. He does not have the cash to win this game, to carry forth with his momentum, and he just lost his Ravens and his Vikings, which was his only advantage. That was a real haphazard attack. I think Ryung was a little just off at that point. And he scans a fully saturated orbital command to the right side. He scans a rebuilt command center in the middle and an army there to protect it. If he had his Ravens, he might have been able to crack this particular position, but Ryung's supply now at only 50. Not going to recover anytime soon. Overly saturating his would-be 4th base. Hard to call it that. And he is trying to get some damage done to his opponent, but even if he stops this base from mining, this base is back to mining. And this base is back to mining. Actually, Ryung threw away so many units over here. I really wonder if he hadn't thrown away these units, the 2 Ravens, the Vikings, a trickle of Marines, he would have still had a similar army supply, right? Maybe he could have done it then. He has a lot of gas, but no High Templar equivalent for Terran, unfortunately. Raven's not really an equivalent. Ryung's also very much all in, he knows it, so he has been rattling across the map, hoping so that GuMiHo would not be able to do exactly this, send his army across. But GuMiHo, figuring that he has enough back at home to defend, does it and wins with it. GG. GuMiHo takes the series and moves on to face Dark. And I do think this is the better TVZ of the two. I mean, I love Ryung, but his TVZ is just it's not his best. GuMiHo, we all know, has the chance to play some spectacular TVZ with a couple of cool builds, mech player as well. So I think we're all pretty happy to get Dark versus GuMiHo in the winner's match. In the bottom left of Royal Blood, it is GuMiHo. In the top right, as the blue Zerg, it is Dark. And you got the winner's match of GSL RO16 Group C. If you would like to support the GSL and all these amazing Korean players, you can do so by being a patron of the Patreon. Patreon.com/GSL. Get these replay packs as well as like player interviews and player cards, which I don't actually know what that means, but you get something. Most of all, you do support the players directly, as all of the money in that Patreon goes to their prize pool, which was severely cut for this year. That's really unfortunate. GuMiHo, having beaten Ryung to get here, is choosing to, I guess, live up to his reputation. Going for a little bit of the unorthodox strategy. At this point, however, it's really not all that weird. Beyond does this apparently every single game nowadays. Maru does it occasionally. GuMiHo's doing it. Everyone's doing it. If GuMiHo jumps off a bridge, you guys should absolutely follow. GuMiHo 2 Raxes on the low ground, you guys should absolutely do it. Dark beats Sats to get here, which was not as one-sided as I would have predicted, but was probably at the end of the day one-sided, even though the result was 2-1. Dark just looked like he was playing around a little bit, to be honest. TBH, Dark definitely does that. But Dark doesn't get to play around all that much versus GuMiHo. Even though I would say, in terms of prowess, Dark is a much more intimidating player to go up against. GuMiHo has proven to be very cunning and surprisingly still very effective at the highest level of TVZ. So Dark cannot go ahead and play just all willy-nilly against this guy. GuMiHo is still applying some of his own flavor to things that other people are doing. This was not for Reapers. This was in fact for Marines, which Dark seems to have at least been a little sus about. He does pull his Overlord back, but with the barracks, I'm distracted, the barracks actually being lifted for this, that means that we don't have any vision on what follows up afterwards. Dark is now blind on this side of the map until speed finishes, and when he wasn't actually planning on getting speed, he's going to go into a Roach Warren and try and tackle this. And I think it actually makes more sense to get someone to open up Marines. Like, I don't like this response against actual Reaper openers from the forward 2 barracks, because the Reaper's going to buy so much time. But with Marines, especially these Marines trying to get a cheeky cancel on the 3rd base, I think going for Roaches is great. Presumably, GuMiHo will still follow up with Hellions too, just because a tank opener doesn't do anything. Like, there's actually no reason that Dark would assume, I guess, that it's a Hellion opener, except he just saw a Hellion here. But the problem with any type of tank opener in this matchup is that it just doesn't give you any control over the game. So it might not seem like a lot to have one Hellion, because it isn't. Ultimately, it looks like GuMiHo is going to try and go into like a... Actually, you know what? I'm going to stop trying to guess what the heck GuMiHo is doing. Like, what is happening, actually? I don't know, man. This is weird. This is so weird. A single Hellion pops out, but it really isn't going into Hellions. It is going to try and go into a 2 barracks Banshee opener? Did he see the lack? Oh, well, now he sees the Roaches. But he didn't see the Roaches when he had that tech lab, did he? I am so confused by this game. GuMiHo's reactor was canceled by a couple of Lings, so he's very delayed on that production. The Roaches are across the map at this point. The Banshee has only just begun. I guess I'll go back to what I was originally saying, which is that I think I like the Roaches. But I honestly have no idea what GuMiHo was wanting to do with this build. I get the killing the Overlord, and I kind of get the Marines running across the map. I don't really understand the follow-up. But things must have changed. They certainly changed once he knew he was being roach rushed, but for the longest time, GuMiHo didn't know. And he is dying because of it. And that's one thing that Reapers get you usually, is a lot of scouting. Not so much the Marines. The Hellion, acting as almost like a TVP Hellion. You'll see that a lot. The Hellion will be used to help deflect the Adept, sure, but then mostly it goes for a scout. And it was too late to scout this particular Roach Rush, which, yeah, just won the game. That was a game of StarCraft. Did he even ever start Stim? Was he trying to go into a 2-1-1 and then change his mind? No, right? He like never started Stim. Dude, I'm so confused. I don't know what GuMiHo was trying to do, but he did not get to do it. So maybe we'll see another attempt in the second game. Let's go. And we have game number 2 after a very odd game number 1. I absolutely knew what Dark was planning on doing. Dark was doing a normal cheese, although not one that is often done by Zergs, but Dark is just more aggressive than most other Zergs. And I think I really liked it versus the specifically 2 Racks Marine opener. I wouldn't have liked it against Reapers, but against the Marines, I liked it. And then the follow-up maybe would have been good against it, but the way that GuMiHo was planning it out, it clearly wasn't. And then he tried to change his mind, and it didn't work out. But yeah, I just think that Dark, as soon as he saw those Marines pop out, I liked his decision making. GuMiHo is going to improve on the 2 Racks Marine opener at home by proxying the 2 barracks on Neo-Humanity. And Dark is not going to be able to scout this super easily. It is over on that Zelnaga, which is a fair distance away from Dark's natural. It's actually going to be a full-on committed 3 Racks, which Dark will most certainly have trouble defending if he does not scout it. He should be able to scout it. The question then is if he does have the ability to go over any high ground to save his Overlord. Dark is on a normal opener so far, hatch gas pool. Overlord will not be able to survive if it does scout the 3 Racks, I think. No, I think maybe it could. The problem now is that it might scout the barracks and go, oh, a 2 Racks, and then go back. Yeah, so maybe it saves its life, but it doesn't know that it's a 3rd barracks. So that's a bit tricky. Well, it is a bit tricky. Well, Dark at least gets to pull his drones, try and stop these bunkers from coming up, but the fact that it is a 3 Racks and more Marines than you would like are about to pop out and start tackling these drones, that's what makes this a very dangerous job for these poor workers. It's like 1 Marine at a time, fine. 2 Marines at a time, little sketch, let's just buy some time. 3 Marines at a time. Drones really don't want to be the only thing you have. All right, it's going to try and bust this before the bunker actually finishes up. Of course, the Marines should be microing their little hearts out, trying to go for this around. The drones almost getting it. Not quite. So far, so good for GuMiHo on the control. In fact, really nicely done. Those SCVs doing a great job helping to block out that full surround. Excellent job there from GuMiHo, who also finished his bunker. Dark Spinecrawler is 60% done, but with the amount of Marines that are still pumping away here and the lack of drones mining from Dark, I think GuMiHo has got this in the bag. That's just, I mean, there's just so many Marines. Like, eventually the Marine count will kill a Spinecrawler. But Dark can't not build drones, so he's building drones right now, but he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. And these drones are so confused. I love his attempt to micro the drones, though. They don't know what they should do. Go for the counterattack! It'll work, trust me. Oh, this is a disaster of a game. It looks like everything's okay, it really isn't. It really, really isn't. GuMiHo will win if he continues producing Marines. Dark will not win if he continues producing army. And if he continues producing drones. He has to do both. Notoriously difficult for Zerg players. Second Spine Crawler does look helpful, especially with the transfuses, but not if the queen dies. Whoops! One transfuse on the queen has to be used. Another one. The Marine count still very, very high, continuing to grow even as GuMiHo also gets his SCV count higher and higher. Lings do manage to capture a bit of a surround, but prior to the Spine Crawler actually rooting, the Marines managed to sneak out from it. So these two Spine Crawlers still aren't actually helping save the hatchery, and even if they did, even though Dark is trying his best to drone up behind this, he's still behind in workers. GuMiHo is so confident in his victory, he's actually getting a natural command center. There's no way that Dark will be able to break out of this and have any sort of counterattack threat. There's no Ling speed. And the hatchery is about to die as well. So there you have it. GG. GuMiHo with the actual proxy 3 racks ends up taking a cheeky one himself.
Forces detected. Arming raid defenses.
Thank you very much, ESL, for that raid. Apparently we finished up the regionals. That's great. Hope they were good games. We are casting GSL RO16 Group C. Please be kind and do not spoil in chats as we head into Game 3 of Dark versus GuMiHo. In the top left of Gresfon, it is Dark. In the bottom right, we have GuMiHo. So Gresfon has game number 3. So far, they've been cheesing each other. GuMiHo went for 3 racks. Dark went for a Roach Rush. Relatively basic stuff, although that first game was confusing and it ended up being basic. Roach kill Marines. And now game 3 on a map very much known for its macro games. Doesn't have to be a macro game every single time, especially with these two. But it does usually go into a 4-base setup for the Terran. 5+ for the Zerg. In that case, I do favor Dark. But Dark has been really aggressive today. His games versus stats, which led him to the winner's match here. I still think was a little bit of him just being cheeky against the the newbie that's actually an oldie, the guy coming back from military. But then Dark also continues to be aggressive versus GuMiHo, who he has been playing, you know, very, very frequently. Over the last, like, year plus. And GuMiHo does give him a run for his money every so often. So I don't know if Dark is just feeling particularly feisty today. Thinks that he is really dominant in the group. Or something else. But he didn't get a chance to cheese in game 2 because GuMiHo cheesed him first. Every other game from Dark has been aggressive. So I'm kind of thinking he's going to be aggressive again here. GuMiHo's gone for a command center first, which really is quite safe. Which makes it a funny opener. Its direct counter is like the 1-base Roach Warren or a proxy hatch, which very few people do. Otherwise, it's not really counterable. And follow up into that barracks, of course. We'll see what afterwards. 2 gas is taken for GuMiHo, something extremely greedy. And Reaper on the way out. Dark does like his 330 Roach Warrens. And then he gets it and then may or may not use it to be aggressive depending on what he has seen. The command center first might make you grit your teeth a little bit. Be like, stupid Terran, get away with the command center first, whatever, man, whatever. Grit your teeth? Grind your teeth. But anyways, it doesn't really have a direct answer, you know, right now. So it's really about what the follow-up is. Banshees. Maybe you don't go Roaches. Battlecruiser? Actually, you could still go Roaches, because Battlecruisers take too long to pop out. A 2-1-1? You could try to Ling Swell. I am thinking of all the possibilities of a Zerg player, because Dark has been so aggressive. GuMiHo does go into a 3rd CC, so this actually is pretty much as greedy as you can be. I think the only thing greedier is, in fact, a 2 barracks opener. So 1 barracks, so command center, barracks, command center, barracks. I think is the greediest thing you can do. And if there is a starport with a tech lab added on, this would actually cover a little bit of that mid-game. A little bit of the early game, I guess, that Dark tends to throw roaches at you for. Other than that, very basic game, jeez. If GuMiHo manages to get himself out of this group in first place, that would be an upset in my eyes. I really think Dark is heavily favored. But GuMiHo on his way to doing so. He's close, right? One more game to win. And his battle mech has been pretty good. It's been tripping up a lot of Zerg players. I wonder if we could see that. The Tech Lab's building on the barracks, I'm feeling less likely. He could swap, though. Could just be using that to build it. Cloak on the way after a Viking. That's actually kind of weird. This is a very old school opener. The only benefit to doing that, well, two benefits to doing this, right? Viking to clear out overlords, okay, sure. And then the second benefit is that the cloak finishes with both banshees available for harassment. A lot of gas coming up. I do think this is going to be mech. I think he's going to swap this off. So no cloak. That was a fake. Just kidding. Just in case an overlord or a ling got through, or he changed his mind. Either way. But it is going to be that mech with all that gas. Two armories coming down as well, and Dark is going to be denied vision on this, so he doesn't know if it's going to follow up with the Liberator and Stim, or if it's mech, since it is a potentially long game versus GuMiHo. You definitely have to be suspicious of battle mech. Dark has gone for his Roach Warren, around 420 actually, I think, so it wasn't certainly not early. But he could go into roaches. He might have already been planning on going into roaches, but now having roaches is going to be a benefit. Not that it isn't otherwise, but it's definitely what you want against battle mech and mech in general. And Dark still doesn't know. He really has no indication. All he kind of knows is that it was a third CC build based off the supply depots, but he hasn't seen the gases. He hasn't seen the factories. He's not even seen an incredible number of Hellions to really get you like a little bit of a hint. You know, you see 10 and you could be thinking more along the lines of mech than not. I would not be surprised if Dark is just presuming, though. Like, literally, he's just like, whatever. You're going to go mech. You're GuMiHo. But Dark also does his 1-1 Roach versus bio players as well. So it's kind of a nice thing, I guess, about this particular opener that he's doing. And because GuMiHo is not actually going into battle mech, by the way, or at least... No, he is, but he's going into a safe version of it. So he's going tanks first, then into Cyclones, instead of Cyclones immediately. If you get Cyclones immediately, you could already have two on the front lines starting to bully the low number of Queens and Roaches. But two tanks first, then into some Cyclones, gives you that anchor on the defense in case they throw something your way. Spire's coming up. I did wonder if he was going to Spire. I mean, it's all the gases, but then he's been going to gases and Roach Ravager anyways. But he does that in that Spire. Spire play, I mean, it's kind of like what you do versus Protoss. It's not necessarily that you're expecting the Spire to straight up win the game, although that does happen versus Protoss. More that you're just hoping that you do catch the mech player out of position. Sometimes you can overwhelm the Cyclone count. Sometimes... mass mutas, like 15 plus, 20 plus, can really surprise a mech player, but usually, 12 made, distraction created, and then big Roach Ravager swells. More so what I'm thinking. GuMiHo's 1-1 upgrades will finish even faster than Dark's. So he went for that fast double armory play. GuMiHo's had very little pressure, but he is starting to build up those Cyclones. Should be going across the map with them and starting to actually bully some of these Queens, clear up some of this creep spread. At this point, of course, GuMiHo knows that it is a Roach game. That's not very surprising, is it? He is aspiring to surprise the mech player. Good joke, you. 8 mutas on the way to start off with. My guess was 12. Let's see if he gets there. 10. Oh, come on, gas. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. All right, maybe he's up to 10. 3 more factories already on the way for GuMiHo. He actually already has his 4th command center finishing, so he is just speeding along here to get to the perfect setup for a mech player. Dark, you know, what would you consider a perfect setup for a Zerg player? 5 bases, 80 plus drones, Hive technology. So he's not there yet, but clearly it's because he has a mid-game plan that he wants to deliver on a little bit more, which are the mutas. But he's not maxing out on Roach Ravagers, so he is thinking about that Hive. Infestation bit's on the way, getting, continuing to get upgrades, of course, but yeah, he is thinking about the future. And as such, without that extra 40-ish supply, I don't think GuMiHo is going to be broken. With 40 extra supply of Roach Ravager, it is a real concern. Oh, GuMiHo Cyclone just got caught off guard. Only 2 Cyclones now available after 2 of them died. He didn't have very much to begin with. A lot of his army back at home in the Hellion supply. That's not very helpful. Now he's trying to defend the Mutas, which are successfully distracting, so maybe Dark, even unmaxed, can find some damage. I was gonna say, though, that's not supposed to happen. That's not supposed to be the case. And there you go. You can see that this army of GuMiHo, even on siege, is pushing back a really small Roach Ravager army. I mean, literally a single Ravager. But had Dark maxed out, I think he would have won right there. 12 SCVs were killed, reactions forced, a lot of reinforcements in the main base, and GuMiHo's 4th command center, not yet a planetary. Dark does have the cash to both get his hive and max out at this point in time, and is finally doing so. And now he has also made a lot of Ravagers, so this is absolutely the type of army that's going to crack a player like GuMiHo. Well, a mech player, sorry. Not that GuMiHo is any worse. In fact, he's one of the best. And maybe he can wiggle his way out of this position, but it's going to be tough. His 2 tanks got destroyed. 1 more reinforces. Thor's not looking super helpful. And that the Mutas have been mostly taken care of. Ditto on the Hellions. Hellions might want to try and go for a run by. Not necessarily helping all that much so far. Great anti-armor missile. That's 2 armor away from all of these units, but 0 tanks helping out. Just the 1 around the planetary. And Dark does have the upgrades almost finishing as well. GuMiHo's very mobile army is not necessarily one that stands its ground. It always has to back away, leaving openings for the Roach Ravager to, hit the command center, kill the SCVs, and potentially even pounce on the Cyclones themselves. Dark just missing a fungal, to be honest, and that would have been game over. But now GuMiHo finally bringing out the tanks to the front lines, protecting his multiple bases, looking a lot more secure. Now that those are out, Blue Flame's finally going to finish as well, and he can go for some harassment. Lock the tank in. That was a bit awkward. But thanks to a couple extra orbitals, that's always nice, I guess. And hopefully now he can escape. Hopefully. He's being aggressive with his battle mech composition, which makes a ton of sense. Did find a handful of lock-ons, but here's the rest of the army coming in from multiple directions, but the tanks really helping out. And for Dark, he can't really tell how many tanks there are anymore, which has probably also affected his decision-making in some of the earlier battles as well. You don't have a scan to say, oh my god, you only have 1 tank, you only have 3 tanks, let's try and crack that. You just have to kind of assume that there's a depth to them. But Dark is set up well in 5 bases. 76 drones isn't the most, but it's, it's working. He's banking a lot at this point. Actually catching GuMiHo a little off guard. Dark turned around and actually combated him, so gotta respect that. But Dark has gone up to a hive. He's got a Greater Spire on the way, a Nidus Storm to play around with as well, Baneley Nest coming down, Burrow, all of the upgrades as well. He's getting everything all at once, as well as a decent amount of creep spread, which I haven't really talked about, but that's encroaching GuMiHo's base very, very soon. It's getting close. And now finally the Mutas are dead. They might have been just wasted supply anyways. Fungals are on the way. A little bit premature, by the way. Pathogen glands, I think, started too soon. The infestor started too soon to take advantage of that. You basically want to wait halfway for the upgrade. Although it's something like 40% into the upgrade, you can build infestors. Safer call is like just wait for it to be halfway. Or maybe Dark actually did make it fast. Like, is that perfectly timed? Dark would be the perfectly timed infestor maker. He loves infestors. Oh, Jesus, no, it's not perfectly timed. Okay, probably not the most important thing in this game, but yeah, it wasn't perfectly timed. Will not have the energy right off the bat to take down some of the Hellion Cyclone. But at this point in time, it's not really about Hellion Cyclone. And one of the earlier battles, a fungal really would have been a game changer. A fungal now, not so much. It's more about the neural parasite. So yeah, the infestors will eventually have enough energy. The next fight is not really on its way. Eric's getting some free scouting. And there is that creep spread continuing to be pushed forward despite GuMiHo trying to stop it. Neural Parasite's not quite done. The fungals are ready though, so a couple of freebies. Ultimate Wombo combo. Interference metrics on an infestor, you don't see that every day. Anything that's psionic, right? But you just don't see that every day. Hellbat's gonna get destroyed. And then, Corrosive Bile is actually getting a tank too. GuMiHo bleeding as he tries to march forward, and Dark already has another maxed out army. Infestors, again, looking a little bit more useless than they would want without the Neural Parasite done, but that was a victory for Dark, 100%, and he's going to continue on with that victory, trying to chase this into an actual game-ending push. As the Thors get landed, they're actually on one of the only defensive units there. One tank helping a tremendous amount, well positioned as well. Reinforcements coming in. Dark's not going to be able to push this into a game win, but he's got other options. He's got other plans. He's now finally has no Parasite. More Infestors on the way. Corruptors on the way too. Going to turn themselves into Broodlords. And Broodlords with Infestors and Neural Parasite do take down Thors. Just Broodlords do not take down Thors. Finally getting some Hellion harassment too, which Dark has not had to deal with. So very few spine crawlers set up, just a couple. It's better than nothing for both accounts. It's better than nothing on the spine crawler accounts and better than nothing on the Hellion run by. I mean, that was the only run by I've seen so far. Here we have a drop by, a bit awkwardly timed. A Thor popped out or stayed there. I'm not sure which one. So it's helping actually. That was not the best. Nidus Swarm comes up in the... I have no idea where. I have no idea where. There it is! Right in the middle. Boom. Dark has taken complete control over the map. GuMiHo, that's a very, very intimidating mini-map for GuMiHo. And it's even a little bit worse than what he sees. Now Broodlords are here. Another Nidus Swarm pops up, because why not? I guess. I mean, I don't think you're going to be putting Nidus Swarm units in there and then pop them out. Oh, 2 for 1 on the Corrosive Biles. But, I mean, it could distract. It could micro. I mean, that'd be really funny to see micro on it. Pop the Queen in, pop it out. And it does provide some more creep spread. So the Queens are still transfusing. Broodlords are in a beautiful position. The Thors cannot get close enough. The Planetary blocking their way. If they come over here, they're going to be choked up. There's also all the Ravagers and Banelings to consider as well. There's the Neural Parasite also being displayed, but those Thors are still doing their job against particularly the Broodlords. No doubt about it, Thors are good against them now, but 2 more Neural Parasites. Here comes the Banelings, here come the Ravagers. And GuMiHo is forced to back away, at least temporarily. Dark actually not making as much headway as this might appear. The supply is staying relatively even. Both of their banks being completely depleted in this attack. And now just 3 Broodlords exist. Medivac helping to micro the Thor is actually surprisingly helpful. Tanks only getting a couple of shots to tear down the Ravagers. Infestors, 2 weak and 2 injured, and without any spells, get taken down. And Dark loses all of his Queens as well. Thought he could just barely push past, but GuMiHo actually had enough in production. They finally showed up on the front lines, finally pushed Dark back, and GuMiHo can now breathe a little bit. He can get some bases back up as well. Since he was denied mining on this one, he is lost out in a lot of mining. You know, he's not mining from the main or the natural very much anymore, but maybe he can get another base up now that he's got some time. Does he have time, actually? Dark has tried to remax on Roach Ravager, and while he couldn't get all the way up there, it is still much faster than what GuMiHo could do. Planetary does finally fall down, as well as a couple of SCVs. And GuMiHo is still in a lot of trouble. If he can't get another base up, then it's game over anyways. And it does seem like it's going to be game over with the Roach Ravager swell. It's going to overwhelm GuMiHo. No tanks to help his Thors anchor against this composition. Not that Thors are bad, and they have 3-3. But they're not what you don't want it to, like a line of Thors against a line of Roach Ravager. That's not ideal. Maybe if they were well supplied, maybe if it was 12 Thors instead of 5. But 5 tanks would have done wonders behind this line against the Roach Ravager. It's too late. 5 tanks gonna pop after 20 SCVs are already dead, after the Planetary is already dead, and GuMiHo is not really any closer to getting a base up, finally sending a command center over to the top right. But even as a Planetary, that might not last very long. GuMiHo has bled out units, is back down to 130 supply. Tanks are finally on the field, but one of them gets taken down. Orbital is under fire. Another tank will be taken down. And Dark still has enough mining, still has enough of a bank to probably end this game with just remaxes of Roach Ravager. Barely not killing the command center that is going to be saved. But more and more SCVs have fallen. This command center at the top right, like I was saying, probably not going to last very long. The single surviving Broodlord is going to harass it. Hell yeah. And GuMiHo thinks he might be able to go ahead and get into some battle cruisers. He's not necessarily wrong. If Dark is literally maxed out on ground army, and Swarm Hosts are helping him max out, by the way, There is not going to be any room for corruptors. So that is true. It's not very permanent. Dark's going to be like, oh, wow, you actually went to battlecruisers? Cool, I guess. And then he's going to sacrifice some supply and get 10 corruptors, and it'll be no big deal. Four battlecruisers now on the way. GuMiHo is really going for this desperate battlecruiser tactic. He might even teleport them across initially. It's a Hail Mary. So why not really go for a Hail Mary? Teleport across the map, try to Yamato down the spire if he knows where it is, and then cause a lot of problems. But he doesn't know where the spire is. And obviously, he does need those battlecruisers at home to help defend as well, so... It's really, I don't know what he's gonna do with this. What happened over here? A Thor drop? Okay, a Thor drop. The 19-minute Thor drop, everyone knows that one. Orbitals being taken down, battlecruisers reveal themselves. Spire units are about to be made once there is room. It's gonna be quite a few dead Ravagers. Haline's also trying to get some damage done, although very, very little. Oh, Neural Parasite's still an option. I completely forgot about that. Oh, no. Oh. Well. GG. Dark does win the winner's match 2-1 and does advance out in first place. As I expected, that had a little more trouble with it. So, you know, there's at least that. GG. GuMiHo will wait in the decider match to face the victor of Stats versus Ryung. The elimination match. In the top left, we have Ryung. In the top bottom right, it is Stats. And we have a real old school matchup here. It's actually not even... It's not even really old school. It's a weird old school. Because both of these players had their peaks at different times in the past. But they both are historic. They both have been, well, not champions necessarily. Unfortunately, Ryung never really got as many medals and trophies as you would expect, but they both had been some of the best of their races at certain periods of time. Stats far more recently. Ryung's time was back in good old Broodlord Infestor, which is one of the reasons he doesn't have as many trophies as he deserves. Yes, I said it. Broodlord Infestor stole many a tournament. And it's not even a controversial statement anymore. Zergs themselves have admitted it. Soon as Heartless Worm came out, you talk to a Zerg player, they'd say, oh yeah, it was a little broken, wasn't it? And they got Swarm Host, the bastards. Anyways, justice for Ryung. I want to start that. I want to hashtag that. Anyways, but he is very good. And, you know, fortunately for him in this elimination match, Ryung is right now very good at TVP. He has been always good at TVT, usually pretty good versus TVP, and I don't think his TVZ has ever been his highlight, but that might have been because it was Broodlord Infestor. And it certainly isn't his highlight today. Now for Stats, I mean, I just can't fathom that he has actually come into StarCraft 2 again with the secret to PVT is really my concern right now. Stats is fresher off of military, so I think just with that, Ryung is favored here. But then in terms of the actual matchup, maybe Stats is his best matchup is PVT, but it's probably not as good as Ryung's TVP. And on top of that, the whole, is Protoss having a tough time? Kind of, yes, they are. So Hero came back from the military, and within about 9 months, I guess, he had developed all these new things. And he was back to his old self, choosing the correct moments to be aggressive. But Stats, obviously, the complete opposite player, does have his own minor developments in terms of Protoss. There's some tiny things that these great players do that make them elevate their races. But I just don't think it's near what Hero was capable of doing. There's a reason Hero's story was quite magical. Stats, as much as we all love Stats, probably not going to be figuring out TVP for us. Probably not. But let's see. Stargate versus 3-Racks. Pretty difficult matchup. Not impossible. But even for the pros, I would say this is a difficult matchup. And Stats has no idea that Ryung is going for 3-Racks. When I think of Ryung's TVP, I do think of his amazing surrounds. He does like his heavy bio usage. Not much of a turtler whatsoever. Doesn't really want to transition over into Liberators if he can help it. He's all about building the mass amount of Marauders and just sending them all over the place. And so the 3 racks feels very much in line with that. Stats really need to figure this out. If he holds back on his Phoenix, hoping that he'll be able to find a unfortunate Widowmine drop, he will be absolutely wrong. Both of them have 0 scouting to each other. So if Ryung was Widowmine dropping, he'd be screwed. He'd be like, lol, what did you do, man? But in terms of blind build orders, right now, Ryung's is better. Like, I really think a Stargate player, a Phoenix player has to scout the 3 racks to begin to defend it. Right? And even then, it's a bit tricky. I guess the good news is that Stats is going to stay hold up on 2 bases. He's not going to try and reach for a fast third. He's going into Phoenix Colossus. Very much expected from the likes of Stats. Still a very defensive Protoss. But he still has no scouting because his Phoenix are staying at home waiting for any type of drop. Now, it's going to be waiting until about 5 minutes, right? What am I drop sitting at, what, 440? And then, well, the 3 racks attack also hitting around that time. And the Phoenix are just not that helpful when the army's already here. Maybe they could follow a reinforcing unit in transit, you know, but once this army's stemmed on that natural, tearing down this one pylon, yikes, you know? It's yikes, my dude. Phoenix are gonna not even see this push out. Oh my god, this is the worst that has ever been worse. This 3rd base is a goner. At best, he could buy some time. Yeah, okay. Ryung, of course, not stimming right there. Excellent reaction. Gotta force field this, man. Gotta go back to Wings of Liberty. Force field. And that will stop Ryung from stimming up the ramp, but that's still... Oh, will it, though? Will it, though? Wow. This is 2010 StarCraft 2, my guys. That is... If you just took away the map, you looked at this particular screenshot, and you were like, the bio player stims when the Protoss isn't paying attention. You'd be like, this is 2010. This is 2023, and that's how TVP has ended. That's so amazing. GG. GG. In the bottom right, dominating game number 1, it is Ryung. In the top left, we do have the Blue Protoss stats. And as much as I'm making jokes about it being 2010 again, because that absolutely was how it was played back in the day, there is a very obvious reason as to why Ryung felt confident stimming up that ramp. Because if we talk about 2010, that was literally the only interaction that was happening. The Protoss was literally just waiting for the force field to have to be slapped down. Like, that was the only thing they had to pay attention to. I'm not even really joking. They stopped macroing when they just waited for the attack. 13 years later, Stats actually tries to micro. He tries to do other things except wait for the army to stim or not stim. So he probably microed his Phoenix, right? As soon as he microed his Phoenix, Ryung just stim A-moved. Well, I didn't A-move, he targeted the sentries, but still. So that was always going to be a very difficult situation for Stats. I am giving him the benefit of the doubt. I do assume he was controlling his Phoenix, but possibly he wasn't. But the overall build orders, like I was trying to say, it was already kind of doomed. The fact that Stats went for Phoenix Colossus and then played defensively with the Phoenix instead of choosing to scout with one really was what happens before you put a nail in a coffin. It was the body going into the coffin, and then the stim up the ramp was the actual nail. So did Ryung get lucky? Kind of. Kind of. But while what Stats did is not uncommon from Protoss, the whole Phoenix opener with no scout, it does come with a giant warning label that most times Protoss account for. They really try hard with the Adept to get in. They do send one Phoenix across the map and take a potential Widowmine drop. Because the Wood of Mine drop is not actually the worst case scenario, funnily enough. I know a unmicroed Protoss against the Wood of Mine drop is the worst case scenario. That is true. But in terms of this will literally kill me no matter what I do, a Wood of Mine drop isn't technically that. You can pull your probes away and deal with it in 10 seconds. You do take lost mining time, you do lose a couple of probes, but it's actually not game over, man. 3 racks, as you can see, that was game over, and Stats did nothing to scout it. This time around, Stats changing things up, going into a Twilight Council. Ryung also changing things up, going into a 1-1-1 setup, playing nice and safe with a bunker on the way as well. Stats really not a big fan of going for any of the early adept shenanigans. You know, last game he didn't go for 3 adepts and aggressive opener. He just went very defensive, playing as we would expect Stats to. This game, he actually very much intentionally does not go for an adept, which is kind of odd, considering that last game was really about scouting. He decides the second game on his last life in the GSL RO16, I'm not going to get scouting units. I gotta say, that is a bold choice. Like, he doesn't even probe scout. I don't want to hate on Stats, but I am kind of hating on Stats right now. This feels like a very poor choice. What I do like, okay, I kind of like this. I wish he'd do more scouting. But what I do like is that he went for a Stalker immediately, and another Stalker, of course, afterwards, which for a Terran player, you could be like, oh, you're going to try and get as many Stalkers as possible to go for an aggressive Stalker opener. You're going to go into 4-gate Blink. Possibly, because you prioritize all these Stalkers. And then instead of going into a Blink build, he actually goes into a Dark Shrine build. But you know what Ryung's doing? He's getting a Raven. And that happens, like, what, 50% of the time in TVP? And if you are at all suspicious of it being a Dark Shrine, then obviously you get it anyways. So this is, like, again, not good news for Stats. I like the idea that this could have been a fake out, this slight change up with the first unit. But it's not worked, because Ryung has blindly gone into a Raven, which blindly defends against a Dark Shrine build. And while Stats could save his DTs and not do any damage, but then theoretically still roll out of this macro-wise, I just don't have a lot of faith in that. Max Pax could do that. Max Pax loves this opener into trying to make it into an Archon drop, into trying to make it into a macro game. At this point in time, Stats is not as good as Max Pax. Oh, one DTA is going to be able to slip on in. There's still always that chance that the DT Chaos is still very much worth it. 1 tank goes down. 3 SCVs as well. And the 1 tank so far the biggest loss. But not the most important loss either. I mean, a tank is a tank. A tank is good. But this is a lot of dedication from the Protoss player. So, let's see. Let's just wait and see. Maybe the Archons also add some damage. 2 Archons get a blast in these Marines. That's actually a lot of dead units. There is a Raven. There is a Viking. There is an Interference Matrix. It is called down. And that is a disaster. I have no words. This is actually so sad. Archon does get recalled. So the Archon and the Warp Prism live, but 0 follow-up damage, I would say, makes this a not effective Dark Shrine opener. Yeah, I'm going to say it's not effective. But Stats does have a 3rd base behind it, alright? So it maybe isn't the most effective opener, but it's not the most catastrophic opener either. Just looked really bad. It just looked bad. So he's going into charge, +1. So we won't have a lot of anti-air, which Ryung might eventually pick up on. But Stats definitely has a very good 1-punch army. Just punch him in the face. And with a Colossus, it'll be especially punch you in the face. And Stats could even go across the map and potentially bully Ryung. But Ryung should be on his way to an actual complete bio army very, very soon. Sim's done, combat shield's almost done, Roger Slow on the way, +1. Going to be finished by the time Ryung goes across the map. Just needs to add on some add-ons. Ryung, I guess, is now just sizing up for a third base, but he is on 5 barracks on 2 bases. It does look like he very much intentionally plans on landing one on location. This SCV is supposed to be building one. So not going to be an SCV pool, but the hallucination does see the priority. 5 barracks. Oh, it is an SCV pool. I got bamboozled. I saw the amount of minerals. The amount of minerals, like, was, to me, not an SCV pool. But I got bamboozled. Stats might get bamboozled, because you can 5 racks into a third CC. But this is an actual SCV pool. An SCV pool, very effective against someone with very little AoE. 1 Colossus is not a lot, and SCV pools are actually very much designed to go up against Colossus a lot of the time. It's Storm that they have to be worried about. Plus, what Colossus? Just kidding, Interference Matrix. Anti-air missile also affecting a lot of the Protoss army. Zealots coming from the left are going to try and hold on here, but that is a lot of Terran left over. Immortals getting ripped to shreds. Colossus finally enabled, but also getting torn down way too quickly. That Warp Prism not quick enough to save it. It's trying to save this Immortal, but it is 1 Immortal, a handful of Zealots against the rest of the Terran army. 56 army supply to 18. Colossus picked up and saved, but it can't take on the tanks. It can take on the Marines, but what about the tanks? Colossus also now in danger. The production of them. Forge is also in danger. Pylon could be taken down, depowering everything. And Ryung still rallying across the map too. He's got more reinforcements coming in. Medivacs gaining back energy. Raven, ditto. And that Raven could go after the Warp Prism. Should be big money. Big money. Stats is awfully close to holding though. 1,000 minerals in the bank. Rebuilding his robo. Blinking +1's almost done for him. But the army supply is still drastically in favor of Ryung. Stats need to actually start building army. Unfortunately, the Raven is still available, so DTs will not save the day. He is morphing them into Archons immediately. That's his plan. Trying to build up an army. The gateway count a little bit lower than you would like. And that's what's keeping Stats from building up. 1,000 minerals in army right now might have actually done the trick. Tanks would be very effectively dealt with by Zealots, especially before these bunkers are up and running. But Stats can't build his army fast enough. Nexus goes down. Probes will fall. I would suggest the Archons go into the Warp Prism, right? Or maybe not, because the Warp Prisms have to get so close. Yeah. Well, an Immortal would have been ideal. An Immortal would have been great to have in the Warp Prism, but he lost all of his Immortals. Here comes the attempt to break. Interference Matrix does go on the Warp Prism, but the Colossus was thankfully unleashed. Zealots do take care of some of the tanks, but so much bio left over. The Colossus not helping, now helping, but also alone as the Warp Prism is allowed to pick it up. But again, 1 Colossus against the world. Ryung still with a 40 army supply lead. Bunker still up, tank still up, bunker still up even after the Zealots get on top of it. And the Marines reinforcing might do the trick. Just 1 Marauder helping to tank the Colossus damage. Medivac's almost out of juice, but reinforcing one's helping out. And oof, this is very, very close. Very close indeed, but I'm afraid with Stats now breaking out right then and there, it is going to be too bad. 2 Colossus makes me feel better against the Marine count. If only Stats would be able to take down the actual tanks. Like, all tanks gone, and his army is good enough. But the tanks being able to target fire the Colossus whenever they try to get close, so making this really complicated. Ryung's still, of course, mining a little bit. 24 SCVs, couple mules every now and again, maybe. I think he has used some scans. Rattling across the map as fast as possible. Stats has double upgrades versus the single. Double Colossus now, double Archon. Still the Warp Prism, the Hero Warp Prism still trying to help out. The tanks are target firing correctly. The amount of Marines once again getting low, but reinforcements coming in. Nice concave from Ryung as well. It's going to be close. It's going to be so freaking close, but the tank still holds. And the Marines are getting healed up again. 2 Colossus would be so beautiful against pure Marine. But 1 pesky tank, 1 stupid bunker. And Stats is in trouble. Ryung's like, how are you not dead yet? I'm going to scan, see if you have a hidden base. You take a fast fourth? No. Oh, no. Oh, Liberators are on the way. Stats has not a lot of anti-air, I can tell you that much. And oh, he just tried to break right there. That was not good at all. I don't know. I thought he got the sentries for Guardian Shield, actually. But I don't know what they were supposed to do when they pushed in there. On the retreat, they helped with the force fields. But that was a weird push. That was a really weird push. More sentries. I I would say it's all you could afford, but yeah, DTs do cost more minerals. I would say DTs would be better. Archons would be better. One DT. Oh, I love this. Oh, man, if Stats had done this earlier. Oh. Shit. Stats had done this earlier, man. Also, the Raven died, right? One DT at a time, dude. One DT at a time? One DT at a time. So many of these sentries could have been DTs. And one DT at a time. That's how I would have won this game. Of course, Ryung should have pulled an SCV to build a missile turret. Yeah, there you go. There it is. There it is. So both of them thinking, like, taking longer to think about these strategies, but weirdly enough, they kind of think about it around the same time, you know? So now it's back to even. It's back to same. And it's still the Liberators, what I brought up earlier, that is the scariest part about this. Stats, not a whole lot of anti-air. Did manage to finish Blink, but the Stalkers are... They have to blink into the tanks, into the bio, to kill the Liberators. I mean, that's going to be so difficult to do. That is quite the contain. Oh, hallucinations! I love that! And Immortals are pretty effective hallucinations. I love the attempted break. Is it going to be good enough? Guardian Shield really helping out against the amount of Marines, with the Liberators still firing away. The tanks blasted the Stalkers apart, and the Colossus yet again left on their lonesome. The War Prism is available, but Stats was paying attention elsewhere. No, he lets it die! The one Marauder! Oh, man. Oh, he didn't even realize. He didn't even realize. He could have saved it. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the tank still up is still too much. The DT didn't kill as many SCVs as he was hoping. Oh, when did he get the Templar Archives? What the hell? What? When did he get that? Why was he building sentries? Regerts. So many regerts. Also, Stat's really not doing the best job of trying to get a better surround with the War Prism. He's always been coming into this one direction, and he's been really close to having enough army, so I think that's kind of the problem. It's like you're so close, you figure the next time it'll be good enough, and then it's not. Well, the next time will be good enough, the next time will be good enough, the next time will be good enough. Yeah, Stats barely has ever used an opportunity with the Warp Prism, the Warping Zealots back here. Should have helped against those tanks, which are finally now all gone. But even the missiles are helping against a single Colossus. The single Colossus, when both could have been alive. Ah! And you know what this missile also does? It really distracts the Colossus big time. The Colossus will have to focus fire on the Marines to be super effective. You can see it's actually targeting 2 Marauders, which are tanking, killing the Archons as well. Shield Body Overcharge gonna save these units. And all it takes is like 1 or 2 blasts, right? From an Archon-Colossus combination to kill Ryung's army. And it's finally happened. Oh my god, it's finally happened. 5 times plus has Stats said almost broke it. Almost got it. I got it. One more time. And he finally actually does it. Both of them gasping for air at this point. Ryung lifts his orbital. Terran overpowered. Am I right, fellas? Where Stats has a long distance mine. They both have run out of minerals, despite the drastic difference of their, actual mineral mining around the same time. Oh, imagine if he had 2 Colossus. Damn. The Shield of Ire does, in fact, stand for now. But 23 SCVs with a couple of mules dropped, appropriately mining, versus Stats is 40, not appropriately mining. Inappropriately doesn't sound like the right word for this scenario, but yeah. Does push Ryung ahead by a big amount. Look at these numbers. Look at these beautiful numbers, not freaking arrows. That tells you what you need to know. Doubling the economy of Stats currently. Stats does have still the Dark Shrine, which I think is brilliant to have in a game like this. Low econ, DTs are amazing. Oh, he's gonna lose one, that sucks. And he has gas. He has gas mining, which, obviously the Terran needs less, so it's not wrong making a mistake, but what I'm getting to is that Stats can build Archons, and Archons are really freaking good, man. Without EMPs available, Archons are great. Not at killing a Liberator, but generally they're pretty good. I do like Ryung continuing to build tanks too. Tanks sometimes feel like the worst unit in the world when the charge lock count gets too high. But other times are the only thing saving your life.
You're doing something right, Captain.
As we head into a weirdly defensive macro game. Because if you just had those... If you only had bio and let the Colossus dance around as much as they want, it'd be bad news. There are 2 Vikings, though, and that will help kill the Warp Prism. The Hero Warp Prism finally goes down. Not in a blaze of glory, either. That was a bit lame.
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you for appeasing the Overmind.
But yeah, not enough Vikings take on an actual Colossus count, so the tanks are currently doing that. Ryung managing to barely squeeze in this Ghost Academy, thank goodness for Mules. And with the Ghost Academy, he will need a little bit more mining of gas. That's why he actually took his gases. Yeah, the Warp Prism was really the most useless at that last second. It was so amazing. It was so heroic. It was like you thought you had Captain America on your side. You know, like we're watching the Captain America movie. He's killing Hydra. He's beating up on the Red Skull. And then instead of saving the world by diving into the like Antarctic or whatever, he just like aims it right at New York. And everyone dies. And you're like, oh, well, you know, almost. That was almost heroic Captain America. This is a weirdly normal-looking PBT at this point. But once again, Ryung on the offensive. This time, more tanks, more Marauders. Good units, great units. Still out-upgraded. And stats is built up his Archon count. Gonna have a couple of Guardian Shields. Actually trying to go for a run-by. Or surround. Run-by is gonna try and get some reinforcements cut off. Ghosts are gonna arrive, however. Ghosts pretty good against those Archons. Ryung is so good at controlling the bio, too. Always having his Marauders on the front line, barely saving the weakened Marauders. Zealots do go for a run-by. It's only somewhat effective. A Liberator perfectly positioned to help out those SCVs. Nexus under fire. And Stats having no way to break the tank line. Do not go down this one ramp. Stats, don't do it. EMPs blanket the army. Guardian Shield is in effect, but only for half a second. The tanks just tear everything down. Back again to 1 Colossus. Make that 0. Nothing to save it. Vikings on top of it, and that is going to be game. A perfect game to display the power of Terran in these low econ situations. We're stubborn little buggers, aren't we? GG. Ryung, 2-0.
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you.
And moves on to face GuMiHo for a rematch. Yeah, okay. I actually guessed that this would be the case, and I guessed Ryung would win a rematch, so let's see if I'm right. And if I am right, I swear to God, cross my heart, hope to die, I have not watched these games. I am just that great of a commentator. In the top left, it is Ryung. In the bottom right of Gresvan, it is GuMiHo. The decider match of the GSL RO16 Group C, who advances on with Dark, who loses out with Stats. I guessed Ryung was going to advance. I did. I'd guessed it. I wonder if it's going to be true. GuMiHo did beat him in the TVT, but it was close. I think both of them made some bad mistakes in slightly different ways. Ryung was caught more out of position, I think. And then GuMiHo, his macro caused him more issues. But GuMiHo did win. But my theory was that Ryung, since he's historically the TVT sniper, and we think of him as a more, I guess, calm, in control type of coach figure, to me, like, that goes hand in hand with TVT, you know? Even though TVT still has so much action involved in the opening game, right? All the micro that goes into it. When Ryung gets to Marine Tank versus Marine Tank, I do favor him. It's not like GuMiHo's bad at it. GuMiHo has already taken a bit of a chance, by the way. 1 Rex expand in TVT, figuring that Ryung wasn't going to proxy 2 Rex. And he's right. Ryung is going for a good old-fashioned factory expand, but he is SCV scouting. So either he is wary of GuMiHo going for a 2 Rex, or, well, that's pretty much it, actually. That's pretty much the only reason you go for an SCV scout. Now you're locked in with me, you fool. Wait, no, there's no second supply depot. Lol. Yeah. So, as I said, it's pretty much the only reason you SCV scout after you factory expand is to 100% defend a 2 racks. Otherwise, you know, this, well, actually, I guess you could still change your build with this SCV scout. You obviously can't change it from a factory expand, but you could change what you get from the factory expand if you think you can get something advantageous going against a 1 racks expander. But yeah, that's the current situation. Ryung goes, you did the thing, and is now going to have to kill usually about 2 SCVs to make up for it. It's honestly not usually the biggest of deals, which makes it kind of funny. It's so vulnerable. The no SCV scout 1 racks expanded TVT is so vulnerable to the 2 racks, which is a totally valid build, that the fact that if you do get away with it only gives you that slight advantage. Sometimes, you know, well, you can see, I guess, why factory expand dominates TVT, 75% of the games at least. But, you know, if you do defend perfectly as the 1 racks expander, you do have a lead. It's like the risk seems not worth the reward a lot of the time. Hello. That's 1 Reaper against 2 win out, but Hellions do produce fast. And Ryung chooses wisely, gets the heck out of dodge, figures there's at least 1 Hellion about to pop out, and since the factory was positioned on the forward place, he's able to scout that. That probably means it took the reactor. Logic. So 2 Hellions are more likely on the way. So Ryung doesn't find any damage, yet somehow still remains ahead by 1 SCV. That should change. That should change with the 2 orbitals already being done. And what do we have as the follow-up? Raven on the way for GuMiHo alongside more Hellions. I hate this Hellion opener. But that doesn't mean it doesn't work. But I do hate it because I feel like it doesn't work more often than it does. But we'll see. I don't know. I don't know about this one. Hellions, you know, go into the natural, kill some SCVs, right? That's all well and good, but the amount of SCVs in the natural is often not that high anyways. What I think it takes advantage of sometimes is the lack of second supply depot. Since the second supply depot 9 times out of 10 goes to scout a Reaper hop up. So the Hellions should be diving right into the main base, actually. They can circumvent the Cyclone, 1 will die for the greater good. But they don't know what's behind it. The grenades could also impact this. Well, if they live, Ryung actually lining up his units, giving the Hellions a chance to, in fact, win the fight. Which, you know, you don't really want to have happen. Raven pops out. Hellion so far doing no damage. Distraction, though, as the Raven hits the main base, but Ryung was paying attention. He's still paying attention to the natural as well, but very few units to actually help. Auto turret's going to have to be slapped down. That Cyclone's getting low. Cyclone's getting low. Big Daddy Tank. Big Daddy Tank. Cyclone probably wants to go home. Go on home. Go on home. Now, the SCV count is substantially in favor of GuMiHo, who also is taking his time to get a 3rd on location. And he's getting away with that by looks of it, because Ryung does not have a counter-attackable army right here, right now. Still losing more SCVs as well to the 2-pronged engagement. 8 SCVs now down in total, after he was already going to be down 1 or 2, right? And then, at the last second, you can see GuMiHo sacrificing the Hellion in a way that it also killed the SCV. That actually ended up being so much better. Playing around like that was actually so good for GuMiHo. Has his Raven still intact, goes on home, takes a 12-worker lead, 3rd to see on location. And the downside of that opening is usually that you don't have any tanks yourself. So a counterattack can be quite fearsome. But since GuMiHo has 3 Ravens and at least will have some tanks, he's only going to be at a 1-tank deficit. The Hellion opener did more than necessary. Just gotta feel bad. Sometimes that thing falls flat on his face. Flat. GuMiHo in a dominating position, moving on to Stim. All 4 barracks coming down at once. Got 1-1 upgrades on the way. Ryung might want to go ahead and move this over into a mech game, honestly, but nope, not going to do that. Still going to stick to the bio. Mech is worse, but in a very dangerous scenario, it can kind of be a better choice because your stim is so late. You're kind of just giving up on the idea. 2 more SCVs go down. Ryung did have a faster 3rd command center. It was just in the high ground, so it only just now lands. Still isn't mining. It's helping him keep his head above water economically, but it's not really pushing him forward. You know, as GuMiHo's third is an orbital on location. 9 worker difference now. As I said, Ryung stim so late. So late. He's going to be a full upgrade behind. Which, you don't have to mech, but what you definitely have to do, mech or bio, is you have to turtle. And, you know, mech is usually better at turtling. But he is going to play some turtle bio games. So he's going to have to play rather perfectly from here on out to make up for this substantial loss in the first 7 minutes of this game. And then play into a mid to even late game. He might only get a chance to step out on the map when he starts building 3 starports. Like, that's not a good thing. GuMiHo has all the reasons to win this game. He has all the chances. 4th on location, and he's right to be that bold. There is nothing to stop him. Still getting damage done with his Ravens, which he's using. He's sacrificing some of them anyways. He sacrificed 1. This one actually escapes unharmed. But he's finding that damage. Lost mining time, still very much hurtful to a guy as desperate as Ryung. So on top of that, you kill a couple of SCVs. Ryung hopes to stop any drop from the north, but doesn't actually have enough Vikings to win the Viking War. So GuMiHo just opened up that opportunity. Sees the 3rd CC only partially defended, lines his tanks up to hit the SCVs at the very least. And GuMiHo is dominating this first game. So I'm feeling less good about my call that Ryung would win the rematch. I'm feeling less good about that. Certainly not this first game. GuMiHo is so far ahead. It's kind of crazy. 4th command center is done. He could turn that into an orbital. I think he could. I mean, technically he wouldn't want to because maybe Ryung's getting drops at this point in time, but I think he could. I think he'd get away with it. 2-2 starts up for GuMiHo as Ryung's not even halfway with his 1-1. Ryung is finally making his way to combat shields. Yeah. Yay. No defenses in the main base. GuMiHo pushed those Vikings out of the way. So at least there's only 2 Vikings stopping him. Which, if not in position, he's going to go ahead and boost right past them. 3rd CC over to the left side. It's on a 4th, guys. Also denied mining with the Raven. He's all over this game. Like, the Hellion opener was good. It gave him a super big advantage, but the rest of what GuMiHo is doing is almost perfect. GG. Like, all of his micro and his macro was also looking fine behind all of that micro. He had such good unit retention. I mean, if I saw that game in the first best of 3 as the first game, I would not have believed in Ryung so much. GuMiHo was freaking on point, yo. See if he can keep it up. In the bottom left, it is GuMiHo. In the top right, it is Ryung. And in terms of who we think of as the more dedicated, professional, full-time StarCraft player, that is GuMiHo. Something I was touching on earlier. Ryung still has more of that just very involved in StarCraft 2 ex-pro gamer feeling, despite him now playing, I think, full-time. I think he also does some stream stuff and some casting and some coaching and just, yeah, in general never seems to have, like, fully committed, but, you know, like a not fully committed Ryung still made it to Katowice and still made it to the GSL and all that good stuff. And I do still think of his TVT as pretty freaking good. But GuMiHo, I guess not only more so that, like, full-time pro gamer and only pro gamer, has also just had some really good results lately, beating some of the best players in the world. Not at the most prestigious of stages, but still, you know, online cups, they matter. And some of those are, of course, Terrans. I don't think GuMiHo often beats like of Mara or beyond, but he can. I would say Ryung could as well, but maybe a little less likely. So maybe it's not that surprising. But that first best of 3, it was a bit awkward for both parties. It wasn't really convincing entirely one way or another. That first game of this series, totally convincing. GuMiHo looked really good. So it's him that is now warmed up and feeling more comfortable against Ryung. So 50-50 chance, you know? 50-50, I got it wrong. He still has a chance to come back, of course, Ryung, that is. He could still make it to the round of 8 of GSL. Join Dark there. But once again, GuMiHo has gotten away with a 1-Rax expand. This time, he did do a little scouting. Now, funnily enough, he did... Why didn't he scout? I guess because he saw an SCV scout. He didn't bother scouting the high ground. Yeah, that must be it, because he pulled the SCV back before he scouted that. So, basically, GuMiHo knows it's not going to be under fire. So he has gotten away with this again. Which, again, is going to give him at least that 2-3 SCV lead or whatever it is once his orbital's done and pumping out SCVs. And Ryung is the one that would like to get some damage done. GuMiHo beat Serral at a home story cup, didn't he? That was a while ago at this point. I know time is, at this point in time, a concept that doesn't feel real. It's like whatever your brain thinks it is, man. That was a long time ago. It was 7 months ago? Or is that the one in December? I don't remember, it doesn't matter. Point is, it was a long time ago. And Ryung has not done any damage to his opponent, so he should fall behind a little bit. But he won't be taking nearly as much damage either, I guess is the good part. I was not a believer in the Hellion, but GuMiHo controlled it really well. So he won right then and there, basically. Not going to happen this time, as GuMiHo goes into a still reactor-less. That's weird. Opener. Why doesn't he have a reactor? Saving a lot of gas. GuMiHo's Reaper just scouted the extent of Ryung's build order. Okay. So this must like expedite the medevac portion of it, right? To skip on a reactor for so long. So Ryung should have a higher marine count. Nope. Wait, how many Reapers did he build? He built 2 Reapers. GuMiHo built 1, he lost it, but he got the scout down. And Ryung is skipping on those Marines to afford everything else he has to do. So yeah. Actually, no consequence to the lack of reactor. Nothing but upsides for GuMiHo. Oh, well, he almost ran right into a Cyclone, so that just was almost a caster curse, but he does not. And he barely saves his own Cyclone, that lock on. Oof. The last second it was available. Or before the last second, I guess. So GuMiHo will be able to repair his Cyclone, but the jig is kind of up as far as his build order at the very least. Ryung does know that he has to be wary of a medevac. Third TC on the way for both parties around the same time. Both going into bio. Yes, indeed. GuMiHo's only on 3 gases. Barracks are on the way for both of them. Will be on the way. Ryung's also only on 3 gases, so he will be going bio too. He's supply blocked! Ah! And GuMiHo is much faster producing all 4 barracks. He has actually not gone into any Viking production or any Raven production this game, so very different from the last one. Instead, using all the reactors that he has built to add the barracks to them, so he's getting very quickly to the Marine tank stage of this game. Ryung might have a stronger Raven count. He has them, GuMiHo doesn't. But GuMiHo is going to have a lot of mobility. And Ryung is not going to be able to figure this out. He's not going to scan unless he thinks he has to. And you know, you check for mech, you check for bio, and you would be checking for what's basically pumping out of the starport. So if you saw 5 barracks already done, you'd presume medevacs out of the starport. If the starport was on this reactor, you'd presume Vikings. But that's if the Terran scans, and Terrans are notoriously greedy bastards. I would know. I'm one of them. And we don't scan even if we really don't need our mule. No! What if I need it? In TVT, you need scans for, like, you know, battles and stuff. But in the early game, forget it. He actually tried to get his Reapers up to the high ground, right? And that didn't work out. So he doesn't know. He doesn't know that he's about to be just bombarded by drop after drop in Marine Concave after Marine Concave. He could still be under the impression that Vikings and Ravens could be on the way. And he's not being given information as a Cyclone drives on ahead, clears up the road to allow GuMiHo to get all the way across. GuMiHo is like, you know what? I'm getting across. I'm literally getting across the map without being seen. You have no idea what I'm doing. Let's go for a big old drop into the main base. Ryung not at all prepared for this. No Vikings in position. Scan reveals the tanks. Ryung says, oh, you're going to attack my 3rd base. That's okay. I'm well defended. Just kidding. It's the main. 3 medevacs already built for GuMiHo. Right into the main. Ryung has nothing to help out. His Ravens might be able to do something, but he's already lost so many SCVs. And I'm afraid this could be it. Ryung getting absolutely obliterated in this decider match. Obliterated. This is way different than the first series. And unfortunately for Ryung, it isn't different in favor of him. Loses 20 SCVs, doesn't kill any of the medevacs, still behind on his combat shields, more lost time on his 4th and 5th barracks production. Ryung once again in the position where he can only turtle. His only hope is to turtle until minute 15. And then he has a chance. GuMiHo's gonna have so much supply, he'll be able to hit, you know, obviously multiple locations at once. With combat shields already done, GuMiHo could even try and pull the trigger here. Pretty wary maybe of the 2 Ravens alongside. He's gonna go for it though. He can play around all he wants, actually. Even if this ends up being a mistake, he's still ultimately fine. And it ends up being a mistake, but it's fine. It's fine. It's whatever. Third base is... Oh no, the tanks are in siege! Ryung, no! Oh, GuMiHo jumps right on top of him. Dead zone taken advantage of. SCV's falling. Drops actually will end up landing and still having the combat shield lead. No contest. Ryung did not have nearly enough units there anyways. GG. GuMiHo, like I said, dominating in this best of 3. Even when I said Ryung might figure things out better for the decider match, I didn't think Ryung would then dominate, you know? But GuMiHo came out in this GSL group kind of, you know, like, a little shaky in TVT. Loses against Dark in the winner's match and goes, you know what, F this. And then just goes Super Saiyan and makes Ryung look a fool. He makes Ryung look like a Code B player. Which doesn't even exist, by the way. That's the joke. That was a convincing 2-0. GuMiHo and Dark will make it through Group C. And unfortunately, Stats and Ryung will have to wait for the next GSL season. So expect to see them probably in a lot of online cups. Hope you enjoyed the casts. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you later for more GSL.